Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is David. Today I'm going to show you how to build this amazing and cool sports car website using React.js. You got this beautiful banner page with all these sliding effects. When you click on the slide button, it'll move very coolly to the next page with all this animation happens to the image and the background text. You see this one? The image got zoom in and zoom out, and the text was got a sliding effects as well. And then in the middle you will see 3 circle progressive bar popped up whenever you slide to the next image. And also on the navigation link, you will see there's a 3 navigation button. When you click on the video button, it toggles between the image and the video for the main banner preview. And you can see this preview video got show up. And when you click on the button again, this one gets hidden off. Right? You can toggle between them. If you leave the video on, and when you slide to the next one, that video is still on. You'll be showing the user the video background all the time. When you put back the image on, and it will show the user the background image only. So that's how the banner animation works. For the other two, if you click on the detail button on the navigation, it'll show you the detail page. And by the way, this is not a singular page website. This is a multiple page website that will give the item details. If you look at the URL here, it actually links you to a different URL with the vehicle ID number in it. So if we move back, I will change to another one, and you click on the detail. This one you can see the video ID, the vehicle ID changes to 2. So it's going to a different page. If you click on the More Vehicle, it'll lead you to the More Vehicle page with this route parameter changes to vehicles, and here it allows you to see all the vehicles on display. And it allows you to go to the detailed page again. If you click on, say for example, this one, it'll get you to the vehicle number 5, which is another detailed page for that vehicle only. So basically, I'll show you in this video how to build a dynamic website with a customized page for each individual vehicles. As you can see, when you click on the detail page, the background, the banner image, and all the images changes accordingly. So basically, every single car in this website got their own customized page. It's different from another, right? So if you click on the explore button or the detail button straight away on your banner page, it'll allow you to go to that detail page again. Right. So on the right top, there's a 2 buttons there. The first one is the like button. So far, if you click on the like button, it'll lead you to the library, which is the one you favor and collected. But we haven't collected anything, so this one is empty. So if you browse the vehicle and go to that vehicle page, and you like anything over here, those 2 that I just liked, it has just a toggle effect on the like button. And you can see the numbers of the like increase to 2. And when I go to it again, those things I just click on and favored has been added to this library. So if you click the like button again, that one disappear and this one disappear. And now your library becomes empty again. Alright, so it has a fully dynamic like features. And also, if you click on the menu toggle button on right top, it opens up the menu. It allows you to go to different page. The first one is the page we are on right now, which is the vehicle page. And the third one is the service page. It allows you to see all the services that your vehicle company providing, and also allow you to go to the contact page if the customer want to leave a message. Right? So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build a multiple page website, not a singular one, a multiple one, in React.js. We're going to use some third-party libraries to support the routing effects. Alright? So if you are super excited about this project and want to learn with me how to build these cool features on the banner page and on each individual page, please subscribe to my channel, and let's go ahead and build it now. So to quickly start up the project, you just need to find the directories in your computer or desktop, and you just need to change your directory to your specific folder. I'm using this one, and in that folder we build our project. You just need to type in npx create react app, and then the following part are just customize the name for your project. So for this one, I just type in the vehicle, or you want to say sports car website. That's 100% okay, but I just say that the vehicle dash website. So that's our project name, and then you hit enter, and the program will build it for you. And you need to have your npm and your Node.js installed on your computer or laptop before this one can be working. And this is going to take a while, so I'm just going to pause the video, and as soon as it's done, I'll go back to it. So now our project has been successfully initiated. So this tells you that how you get into that project. So on your terminal, you just want to key in that cd into your vehicle website directory. So cd means change directory. We're going to that vehicle website, and then you hit enter. As soon as you get into that directory, your directory name will change over here. And then instead of keying the npm start, which start off the project straight away, what we want to do is that we want to open up this project in our code editor. I'm using Visual Studio Code, but you can use anything you favor. So I'm just going to key in code period to open up this one in the code editor. So now I'm getting into it. So I'm just going to expand this one a little. Yeah. So when you get into the code editor, and you will see that there's a couple of folders has been pre-built for you. Nothing too much to worry about in the Node modules folder, because these are all the third-party libraries and dependencies you're going to be using in this project. Many of them have been pre-installed already, so you don't have to touch them. And the thing you need to look at is the package.json file. If you go into there, in the package.json file, you will see, and it tells you the name of the project, the version of it, and also, most importantly, the dependency it has been using so far in this project. These are all built-in dependencies, and most of them have been loaded in your Node module folders already. So later on, if we add in more dependencies, the name of the new dependency will be added to this package.json file over here as well. So this is a priority thing for you to look at. And in terms of other folders, in the public folders, you might want to have a look at the index file, because this index.html files is your root file. In the end, all of your JavaScript code will be compiled and injected in this element, which is the ID root, and that will load your entire application. But so far, let's just clean this page to make it easier to read. These green lines that has been commented out are useless, so I'm just going to delete them. And a similar thing for the above. Delete this, and also this one as well. If you have any metadata, or you want to have any third-party links, or say, for example, the CSS links, or some JavaScript links that cannot be installed as an npm package, you can also put on this page as well, just like a normal how you build a standard website using vanilla JavaScript. And here you can change the title. Let's just say this is going to be a sport vehicle React app. Yeah, so you can change the title of it. And here it tells you need the JavaScript to run this app. Of course, we know that, so that line is useless. So far we're just left with this one line. And then you can see in your body tag, there's only one line of code that wraps up every JavaScript that has been compiled using React.js. This is how the thing's going to be working. So once we've done this page is pretty much untouchable in the near future, so we'll just close that off. And the next folder for you to look at and pay attention to is this source folder. Majority of your code will be written here. And two things that has been given to you is the index file, index.js file, and also your app.js file. So pretty much we're going to write all the codes or wrap all the codes inside this app.js file. This app.js file in the end will be compiled into your index.html, which is this one I just showed you. So the app.js wraps everything, every JavaScript, every component, all the items you build, and essentially this file will be injected into this index.js file, and this index.js file wraps the app and will be injected into this ID root. That's how the logic works in the React. Alright, so far we don't touch the index.js file, but later on when we build something else, we might modify it when the time comes, and we live with us with the app.js file. If you hit on the hold control and backtick, control backtick, it opened up the terminal on your browser. And then you just want to hit that line of code that we missed previously, which is this one, npm start, because that's the one how to start the project. So here in your code editor terminal, you just hit in npm start to start that project on your browser. As soon as you hit that, oh, I typed it wrongly, my bad. npm start. As soon as you hit that, on your browser localhost 3000, that page gets loaded. Whatever you see here, it actually has been pre-built over here on the app page. This is the item that has been loaded on your browser. You can see Learn React, and then here you will see the Learn React button down here, which is the same thing. And here it asks me to build in something which is a missing dependency in my app, which is the bubble, the compiler. So I'm just going to copy that line of code and add it into my project. You might not have this problem on your computer. It's just a very personalized thing. So if you don't have this warning, don't worry about it. So to add in this dependency, we don't use this terminal. We add a new terminal inside the code editor by press the plus sign. And then once we're over here, we just say npm I for install and put in that name. Hit enter. It'll take only a few seconds to install that one. And then once it's installed, it will tell you that this one has gone successfully, and then it will put you back to the original routes. So close off the additional one, and you go back to the original terminal, you will see everything works normal. It tells you the host and tells you that everything has been compiled successfully. Right, so far so good. And the next thing we want to do is that we're going to clean up the app page, because so far it's loading the React built-in stuff. We don't need this. We need an item for our own website. So what I will do, I will delete everything inside the return, and just as a test to put in some text words, let's just see vehicle website. Save. And then now if you go back to the browser, you will see that thing has been saved to the words you just text in. And this also proves that the app actually holds everything of your website. So everything you write inside the app will be eventually loaded on the browser. And the next couple of things for us to look at, one is the app.css. Every component comes with a CSS file to control the style of it. And so far, this CSS is used to control the previous app file that has been built in by React.js, but we don't need any of those. So I'm just gonna very quickly delete all of them and save it. So now you are left with the empty app.css. Later on, we're gonna modify this one to the one we need. And other things, seems all good to me so far. We don't have to worry about it. And before we officially start to build a project, I'm gonna add in a few more dependencies that we're gonna use specifically for this project. This logo is not useful anymore, so delete that, and that one goes away. Sometimes it has some warnings in yellow. That's gonna be okay for you to keep moving on. It's not a key error, but if there's a vital error that comes in red, you probably want to look at it and fix it immediately. Otherwise, your project might go even worse if you keep moving along. And then we just press that plus sign again. Over here on a new terminal inside the code editor, we just want to install our dependencies for this project. And the first dependency we're going to install is the Bootstrap. So we're going to use that to set up the responsive framework to load our application. Otherwise, it will take you many lines of code in the CSS to achieve that responsive purpose. So just key in npm -install. So we install that Bootstrap. And also, we want to install that Bootstrap icon. So we can use the icon. And also, we're going to use another icon called boxy icon. And to enable that multiple page, we're going to use a third-party library called React.js. So that React.js allows us to create different routes in our application. Router DOM. So you can have all the dependencies installed at one load. So here you just type in each individual name. We have the Bootstrap icons, box icons, and React.js. And once you have all of them, just hit enter, and it will automatically install everything for you. And so far we just installed 4 of them. If later on I got something that I want to add back in, we can always come back to the terminal and add new dependencies. So we have that one done, and we'll close off this terminal. This one's still working all okay. If you go back to the package.json file that I showed you previously, and now you look at here, it has that Bootstrap, the Bootstrap icon. It tells you the version number below it, beside it, and also the box icon. This is the React DOM. We use that for our routing feature. So if the name shows here, basically means you have installed everything successfully. Otherwise, you might want to look at whatever has been created. Yeah, so we've done the dependencies, and now we can formally move back to our project and start to code. The first thing is to load those packages we just installed right above. So we have installed the Bootstrap icon, and also the box icon. So instead of saying import app.css, what I want to do is that I'm going to copy and paste this code in to import all of those third-party dependencies. If you don't import them, you can't use it in your app. Because these dependencies will be used all the way through our application, so the best place to import them is at your global level, which is the app.js. And the next thing we want to do is to create a couple folders in our source folder, so we can separate every item in a very clear way to make our structure more organized. So the first folder I'm going to create is called component folder. So that loads all of our components. And the second one, we will have our page folder. If you want to store different pages. And if your website got any static data that is not going to be changed or fetched from the the external API, you can just store your static data in this data folder. And also, if you have some static image, and you can also create an image folder to store your static image that is unlikely to be changed on your web browser. So far we have 4 folders installed. And think about when you look at a browser, what is the first component you want to build? It's probably going to be the banner. So that's the first page. When the user comes to your website, they want to see the banner page straight away. So in our application, we'll build everything by the order. So the first one we're going to build is the banner as well. But think about it, is the banner going to be a component or going to be one of the page? Of course, it's going to be one of the pages, right? So inside our pages, we're going to create a component. Component is not a folder, it's a file. So we just say file, and here you type in banner.js. That'll create you a JavaScript file. But since we are specifically in React app, so we just key in JSX and tell the computer this is going to be a React file, and then enter. That'll open up that file for you. And then you want to create a very similar boilerplate to that app one where you have that functional component and export that component down the bottom. So what you can do here is to key in the RFCE and tab to create that boilerplate for you, which looks very similar to the app one. If this abbreviation or the shortcut on your computer is not working, what you want to do is that you go to your extension and then you scroll down, and you might want to install a new extension on your code editor called ES7 React, Redux React, Native Snippets. Once you install this one, that RFCE shortcut will be working for you. It'll save you a heap of time to create a boilerplate, and you can focus purely on your coding and the structure of your project. So once we have that, we save it. And very soon, in the same folder, we'll create a new file called banner.css, because we want to have each component having an according CSS file attached to it. All right, like a similar style of the app and the app.css. So these two are linked to each other. One is to control the JavaScript and the HTML of your code. The other one is to control the styling of it. But to use that, we have to do the similar thing. You need to import that CSS file into that component file to be able to use it. So inside here, I just say import. Period with a slash means same folder, banner.css. So now you can have it over here, right? So these two are perfectly attached to each other. They belong to each other. And once that's done, we have done our first component. We're just going to say in the banner, let's say maybe give it a title, h1. Let's say this one is a banner, just to test out if it is working. So far, if you go back to your browser, nothing's going to happen. It still shows the vehicle website, like what you did previously here. The reason is because, remember I told you that everything must be wrapped inside the app before you can get them loaded on the browser. So we create a banner component, but we never have a chance to import it. So we export it here, we must import it here. So inside the app, we delete that. Inside the brackets, the trick is that to import a component, you can't type in import something right above and then type it again, but normally the code editor will give you the shortcut. You just need to type in angle brackets, type in that app name, the component name. It'll give you a reminder to say that do you want to import the component in the page folder? Yes. Tab. And you can see right above, import that banner component from the page folder for you. And then you just need to close that bracket. Save. So now you export your created banner component here, and then you import it over here. So you use it in the app. As soon as you put the component in the app, it will be showing on the browser. You can see that banner text words that we typed in over here gets to show because you wrap that component inside the app.js file. That's how the React way of getting things to work. Okay. But before we go that further, what I want to do is that I want to set up some styling for our entire application in our app.css folder, because there are some styling applied to the entire application, not just a single on an individual page. And first thing we want to put in is the font that I'm going to use in this project. One is the Roboto, the other one is the Racing font. So we have 2 fonts used. These are all Google fonts, and you just need to go to Google Fonts and type in this name to find this thing, and then import it here. And the next thing, I'm going to build some general settings for the entire application CSS. So general. First thing is that we define the margin and the padding. And you can see here, we give a margin of 0, padding of 0, box setting border box, scroll behavior smooth. As soon as you have that, and then you're going back, you will see this one is touching to the corner. And then the next thing I'm going to import, apply, is some theme color. So colon root just give some root color. This is our primary color, which is a sort of a color between cyan and blue. And we have our secondary color, which is a dark cyan. Third color, which is a cyan. The first one is a pink and red. So we have those 4 colors to be used in our project. And then down here, give some definition for the body. And the body, unless specifically mentioned, otherwise we'll be applying the roboto fonts all across. And I want to remove that scroll bar. Yeah, of course, each application will have the scroll behavior, but I just personally don't like the scroll bar to be visible to the user, so I just remove it by typing in this line. This means that for everything, everywhere on your web page, and whenever there's a scroll bar, display none. Okay, so that's what it means. So once we have that, and we're gonna define some other things as well. For the anchor tag, we want to remove that text decoration, and we want to have the cursor point. And also for all the titles and H1 to H6 and the paragraphs, we want to make sure they use the roboto font as well. So this is for that. So once all of those things done, we have done our general setting, and you're going back to see that one's working all okay. And the next thing, we're going back to our app to see the first part is to build is the banner. So we jump to the banner, and we're going to build everything from here. As soon as we start to code our application over here, the app one will be changed and load that one automatically, so everything should change accordingly on the browser. So inside banner, I delete the original lines and give that div a class name. Just pay attention to the naming convention here. It's that in React app, we use a class name to replace the original class in the vanilla HTML files, but it's the same thing. It's just the React, we have to say React name, otherwise it will give you a warning. And inside the banner, let's think about at the introduction page, we have a dynamic banner where you want to switch between different slides that contain different vehicles, right? So whenever we click on the switch button, the next vehicle should show, and then we click again, the one after should show. So to achieve that purpose, if we hard code everything here, that is very unprofessional. It's not a React way of doing things. So what we're supposed to do is that we're going to fetch those vehicle data from the external API, and then we're going to map those data into our DOM, in our component, okay? And to do so, we're going to build a mock API for our project to work. So how to do that? Inside a public folder, we're going to build a folder called API, so that this will contain your API routes, where your data contains about. Hit enter, and then inside here, we're going to build another folder called assets. So this will contain all the videos and images used in this project, okay? So what I will do, I will copy and paste the API file, which is a JSON file that I prepared before this course, so we can use it straight away. I'm going to copy and paste it here. And you could see in that vehicles data.json, this is a JSON file over here. It contains all the 9 vehicles, which is the sample data we're going to use in this project. And for each vehicle object, you can see it has an ID, it has all the images we're going to be using, and the video to show to the user, the title, the year, the make, the model, the category. It's pretty much the mimic a real car website. That's most of the car data is about. And the reason why I put it into a JSON file is because when we fetch data from the external API, the format of the data that we get from the API is more than likely to be in JSON format. So this is going to be in the real project, you're going to get the JSON data as well. So I put it into the API folder. And how to get to see this JSON file, if we opened up a new browser, let's just say that I will go to localhost /API. Instead of the old one, I'm just going to type in the new JSON file. Let's say vehicle data.json. So I hit enter, and you will see under this route, this is your domain name /API/JSON, and then you will see that JSON file has been successfully fetched. So this is our mock API URL, which is the RESTful API. We can make a GET request from this one, and then map all of our data into our web component. Okay, this is the idea. So far we got nothing. That's that. And then in the assets folder, I'm going to be putting in all of those images, because you can see these routes contains the image and the video. So normally the JSON file will only contain the routes of your assets instead of the asset itself. The asset itself must be stored in a folder. In a real project, you might want to put this folder into your online disk, like a cloud disk or your Amazon bucket, right, to store those physical data. So what I will do here, I will copy and paste in all the vehicle image and the videos we're going to be using in this folder. Paste, and you can see inside the vehicle, we have all of those beautiful cool car images we'll be using shortly. And inside the video, I have also prepared all of those videos beforehand, so we're going to use it shortly. And close that off. So these two are all working okay now. Soon as we have the API, we can do the data fetching. And also, to think about it further, where should we fetch data? Should we fetch data in a banner, or should we fetch data somewhere else? And the thing is that if we fetch data in a banner, we are only allowed to use the data inside a banner page. But to think about our entire application, we're going to use the data everywhere on different pages. We're going to use the data on our banner page, on our vehicle page, and on our card page, all of those things, right? So the best idea to import the data is to import it at a super global place, so we can share it across the app, okay? So leave that for now. Going back to the app page, we do the data fetching first. So in here, we build a state variable. Below that app.css or above it, should be above it. And then we import the React. So not only we're going to import the React, we're going to import a few hooks. We're going to import the use state hook and also the use effect hook. We're going to use these two to load our data. And once we have that done, down here we create a state variable. The way the state variable works is that you create a state variable name, and then you create a state variable function, and then that equals to use state. And inside the brackets of the use state hook, we write the initial state of that state variable. And think about, eventually our data will be in a JavaScript array that contains the JavaScript objects, very similar to this JSON file. This is a JSON array that contains the JSON objects, right? As soon as we have this data fetched into our application, we will convert this JSON data into JavaScript data, and that will be a JavaScript array that contains objects. So initially, it's going to be an empty array because we have no data yet, right? So this represents, for the data variable, initially it's going to be an empty array, and soon we're going to fetch data and reset this data to that JSON file data using this setData function. Okay, this is how the use state hook works. The variable itself, the initial state, and how we're going to change the variable to the future state. Okay, so once we have that, we're going to do a fetch function. So below it, we say that const fetch data. Just write a function. This is going to be an arrow function. So just set up that boilerplate, and then inside here, we use a built-in approach to fetch data, which is called fetch. Yeah, this is a built-in JavaScript function that allows you to fetch data from external API. And we're just going to copy that API, which is our localhost JSON file. Just copy that. And going back, brackets, paste. So this is telling the computer, I want to fetch the data from this URL, which is our mock API. And then once that's done, it'll return you with a promise. Okay, we have to consume or decompose that promise using the then function. Then we'll say we get a response from the routes, and then we're gonna convert that JSON inside that file into our JavaScript using this thing called response.json. So that will allow the computer to convert the JSON data into JavaScript data. But it's also another promise you will get. To consume that promise, we're gonna use another then function. Here you will get the real data. So we'll say data, and then we want to put that data into our local state variable data. Okay, so we say data, and then set data to that data. So these are different. This data is returned by the fetch function, which is the JSON data that has been converted into the JavaScript data. Okay, and then the set data is our local state variable function, which will allow you to set that empty array initially to the data that you fetched from the external API. So now our data variable, the local state data variable, will be changed to the JSON data like this. That's how we done the entire process through this chained promise function. But just in case there may be some errors during this process, what we also want to do is that we write a catch function. Inside the catch function, if there are any errors we want to show off. But since we are building an application under developer environment, so we just console.log that error if there's any. Console.log e.message. Save it. So now we have done the fetch data function to get the data. But if you look at the function itself, this color is sort of faded. It's not the bright yellow. In the code editor, if you create something and then you use that thing will be turned on and becomes bright. If it's fading, and basically means that you created something, either a function or a variable, but you never have a chance to use them. But how do we use this one? If we don't use that, how do we fetch this data from that mock API? This is where we use the second hook, the use effect hook. We use that use effect hook when our page gets mounted on the DOM, okay, on the browser. If we want to load something as soon as our page gets mounted, that thing should be loaded in our use effect hook. So we say that use effect brackets. Inside it comes as an arrow function as well. So we say that arrow function and comma give the empty array. I'll explain why we give the empty array very soon. Inside this curly braces, we will put everything that we want to load whenever our page gets mounted, okay, on the DOM. What we want to load? We want to load that fetch data function as soon as our application gets mounted, right? So we're gonna call our function inside the use effect hook here. And the reason why I put an empty brackets, empty array here is because this part represents the dependency of our use effect function. Our use effect function will be triggered depending on whatever you put inside this array, a dependent variable. If you put an empty array here, basically means the use effect hook will be only triggered at the time of mounting once and will not be triggered again because it depends on nothing. However, if you put in here some other variable, say for example, whenever that variable changes, that use effect function will be triggered again because it depends on that. Those things are linked together. Okay, so we delete that to ensure that our data will only be called once at the first time our page gets mounted. Save that. So now we have everything loaded into our data, should be working. And what we want to do is just that I want to see if we could console.log that data to see if it's working. Console.log. Here we fetch data, and we should have the data stored in our data variable, which is the local one, and we just put it on the console to see if it's working. So back to the browser, reload the page, and then turn on the console. As you can see, that array there. If I just retype it, reload. So far it's an empty array, which is our initial state. And because we just finalized the loading, we should probably put it somewhere else to see if it works. What I will do, I will put it at another place instead of inside this use effect, because these two are running all together. It just fetched the data. It should put it somewhere else for it to show. So just kind of call off this line from here to somewhere else, just to demonstration purpose. And we're going back to here, and you can see, yeah, that array changes to 9 items in it, and each one contains that object. You can see that's our objects, the vehicle objects, all in it. Okay, so basically means that we have successfully fetched data from this mock URL, which is the JSON file, into our app. And that data gets stored into this local state variable data, which is good. Okay, so we've done that. And then next thing is how we're going to use this local state variable, because so far it's trapped in our app.js file. But essentially we're going to use it in the banner page or other pages. So this thing must be shared across all of our applications. If we, one way to solve this problem is to do a property drilling. Say for example, in a banner we can say data, give it a property, and let that data equals to that data. And this one will pass this local variable as a property value into our banner component, which is okay for small or tiny application. But the one I'm building right now is sort of like a medium-sized application. There will be heaps of places to use this data file. And if we're going to do property drilling, we're going to probably drill it too many times. So what I want to do is to share it globally. So we're going to create a global structure to share that local state variable data, and every subcomponent can reuse it over and over again, okay, instead of do the drilling. And the way to do so is to use another hook inside the React.js, and we call it use context hook. So here below the app function, above the app function, must be above it, or you can create a separate file if you want to, but this is one line of code, not necessary. Here we export one line of code saying export const app context. So we can create a context variable to store that local state variable data. And then how do we create that? We just say that React dot create context, close the brackets. That's all. Okay, just one line of code. We export it in the app file. And if it's a complicated structure or a large project, you might have multiple context variable where you can create a separate file to store this and export it over there. But for our size of application, it's okay to put it in the same file. As soon as you have that, and you can use that context variable or use it to store some value in it. And the way to do so is down here. We wrap every component that we're going to return inside that context variable tag. So here I just call it, give the brackets, and over here I give a empty tag first. The empty tag represents we want to wrap everything inside it as a whole, but it doesn't give any genuine tag. It's just an empty tag. It's not a div. It shows nothing on your browser. Okay, but it allows you to wrap everything inside it. And over here I will just say that app context dot provider. So we must provide that context variable first, and then that's an opening and a closing tag. Inside here we wrap everything that we want to show. We probably want to give the user the header or the banner or everything, right? So we're going to put the banner here, and then over here we use a built-in property called value to store the value that we want to share across the entire application. And so far we want to share this data, or maybe even a set data function. And then we just say, sorry, that's going to be another JavaScript object. The value comes as an object. We say data, set data, those two. So in that way, the app.js local state variable data will be injected into the context variable data. And then that thing gets shared across the entire application as long as you wrap it using that app.contextProvider tag. So it must be inside that provider to be able to share this data. If it's outside, it's not working. Okay, so we have our banner so far gets wrapped in it, and later on we're going to have multiple pages or even our entire routes gets wrapped in it. That's all good. Alright, so we have our data, and the next step is to going back to our banner to keep building our project. This one is good. We close that up for now. And then we have our banner, we have our header, all going to be showing on the first page. So after building the banner, we're going to be building a second component, which is called a header. And then, as soon as we have that component, which is RFCE, to create a boilerplate to load our header. And also very soon, we're going to create a new file called header.css. So those two must be linked together. So inside the header file, we just say import / means same folder, header.css, save. So that one's done. So now we have a second component over here. But on the second thought, this one is not supposed to be a page. So what I'm thinking of is I move these two into a component. That's a more appropriate place to store them, because header is a component we're going to reuse all across our app. So we're just going to drag them into the component folder and say move. So those things goes to that component. And the structure is okay. Nothing going to be changed. And back to our app. Here we wrapped a banner into our provider. And we probably want to put other things inside here as well if we want to load it on the browser. So we say import header, the one we just built, import, close the brackets. So now we have our header and our banner both loaded into our browser. So the banner, if we give a name, say banner, and the header, we have a name for header. And going back to the browser, you will see headers there, banners there. Basically means that we have two components or page all loaded successfully on our browser. Okay. And then you going back to your code editor. Let's first start it from the header because that's the easiest part. And the banner will contain more data mapping, which is more challenging. And think about what we're going to put in the header part. In terms of the coding, it is easy, but in terms of the functionality, it is huge. There are many functions that's going to be contained inside the header. So the first thing is that we're going to create a header tag to wrap our header. Right? That's the formal way to do a header. And inside here, what we're going to have is a logo. So we're going to create an anchor tag and give a class name of logo. So that one is going to take us back to the home page, and inside it we just say vehicle or sports car, sporty, or you have a logo image you can put in. It's also going to be wrapped in here to make it simple, and I just put in the text box there. So we have that done. And then the second thing is that we're going to have a like icon to store or to show user how many items have been liked. And also we're going to have a menu button on the far right to allow the user to toggle the menu, the navigation. Okay, so we build two things. I'm going to wrap everything in a div, and inside that div, what we want to do here is that we create a like button, also going to be an anchor tag, give it a class name of like, and inside here we probably want to give a icon for it, which is the heart icon. So to do that, I'm going to use the Bootstrap icon that we have pre-installed at the beginning of the video. So I'm going to the Bootstrap icon website. This is how we installed it. And we search for heart, and you just need to look for a solid and filled heart, which is this one. Copy that line of code back to your code editor, paste it. Remember to change that name to class name, otherwise you will encounter a warning later on. Even though I say that thousands of times, but I personally make that kind of mistake all the time as well. It's just very easy to miss that. Keep reminding yourself. And once we have that done, that's one like button. The next one is going to be a toggle menu. So we say dot menu, and inside here, what we're going to show the user is going to be a menu icon. So going back to the icon, and then we found a list as our menu. Copy that back here, put it in, change the name. Okay, and if we're going back to the browser, we'll see we have that like button there, and also we have that icon there as well. So it's all working so far, so fine. And the next thing to think about is how do we toggle these things? Because when the user click on the menu, firstly it shows the menu icon as a list, but when the user click on it, it should change that one to probably across, right? Because we should allow the user to change it. And the way to do so, we're going to import another one. Let's say close. Let's find the close button. This one looks larger. We're going to use this one. Copy that. So we can have both of them loaded in the menu. We just have to do a toggle function later on to toggle between these things. Okay. And in the header.js, I'm just going to do a bit of a styling to make it look nicer, because so far they're just sitting very ugly at the top left corner. So for that header, we're going to give a position fix because it's always sitting at the top of the page. Make sure it's attaching to top 0, left 0, taking the whole width, display flex, space between, so that'll spread out all elements on the header, and make sure the vertically alignment is center. Give them a certain padding, make sure it stands out from the crowd, have a really high Z index. So every other element you're going to build in the future is going to have a lower Z index. The Z index will decide the layer, if it's going to be on the top of all the layers are going to be below another layer. So the higher the number, the more top the layer will be. And we're going to create a pseudo elements on the top right corner, which will give a bit of a background to look our header looks nicer, and save that. If you're going back, and you can see that one's there now, and this vehicle icon's there as well. And going back, let's just keep typing in the CSS. And on the next thing, we're going to define our logo style. So here we're going to have a logo, a really strong font weight, and also make sure it stands out. But the thing I will pay attention to is that I changed the font size to the racing font. So, actually give us a bit of a more identity of our website is a vehicle website. And down below, we're just going to define our like button. So make sure it's going to be a position absolute with a certain right and height. Make sure it's a square, and also display flex. Make sure everything sits in the middle. And once we save that, we'll have our like button there as well. And then the next thing we're going to do is the menu, because so far our menu is not showing. So we define our menu, give a certain width, and also make sure that it stands out. And now you have two menus because we haven't enabled that trigger or the toggle between each one of them. So only one of those gets to show to user at a time. The other one should be hidden. We haven't set it up yet. And going back, what I'm thinking of, because in the like, eventually there's going to be a number showing to the user as a badge. So I will build a badge here that shows the liked item number. So in here, I create another span and give a class name of like number and tab. And inside here, we're just gonna so far put in 0. Later on, I will make this one dynamic. Okay. So get that class name, and going back to the header, just down below that like, we define that header.like numbers. Inside here, I want to make sure that position is absolute because it's going to be restricted inside that like icon area. Make sure it sits right on top at that position. The best position is achieved by try and error, so you just need to keep trying this percentage to see where it locates most appropriately. And then once you have that done, set a font color to the fourth one, which is a red. And then going back to see, it has a number that has been surrounded by the red background, which looks much nicer. Okay, that's pretty much our header. Our header is a very simple one because we have our navigation not sitting at the top, but showing on and off from the side, the right-hand side. And we're going to build it later on. And the next thing I want to do is going back to our header to achieve that toggle function for our menu. Whenever we click on that menu, we're only allowed to show one icon at a time and disappear the other one. So inside the header, we're going to create a local state variable to set the status of that icon. So right above, we're going to use that use state hook. And then down here, we say const open. Open means that you want to open up the menu, and then we say set open. And that one's going to be a use state hook. Initially, think about what's the state of that open status. We want the menu or the navigation to be closed off, right? We don't want to show them up at the initial position. So initially we want to close off. We give it a boolean. We make sure it's false. Later on, when we toggle it, we set a false to true or true to false. It's going to be the opposite way. So next to it, we write a function handle toggle menu. It's going to be an arrow function. And inside here, we say set open to the opposite of its original state. So if originally it's a false, and now it's going to be true, originally true, now it's going to be false. So it's going to be opposite open. Okay? And now we have the thing done. We're going to use this function whenever the user click on this menu. Copy that. Here we set a onClick event, and we put that function in. But even though you have this one, you just pretty much enabled this function, but it has nothing to do with which icon to show. We have to link this state variable to that icon. So we are conditionally rendering something on our DOM. This is called a conditional rendering. And the way to do so is to write a bit of a JavaScript inside the anchor tag, and we say open question mark. We're gonna write a conditional state by asking computer if that open status is true or false. If it's true, basically means it's already opened, and I want to show the close one, right? Because if it's already opened, I want to show the close icon to enable them to close it. Otherwise, if the open is false, basically means so far it's closed, I want to show the user the open one to enable them to open it. So we are conditionally rendering this close icon or the opening icon at a time using this expression. Okay, and that one is determined by the open state variable, and the open state variable is set by our click function. Whenever we click it, we toggle this one to true or false. Let's try it out in the browser to see if it's working. And going back, you see, when I click that, the other one gets to show. It's working perfectly, right? So only one gets to show at a time. That toggle function is working. This is what we call the conditional rendering. So next thing is our navigation, because we not only want to toggle the icon, but also whenever the user click on it, if it's open, the navigation should pop out from the right hand side and take the entire vertical screen. How do we achieve that? we're going to first build that navigation over here and hide it. Whenever the user open that menu, we're going to show it, right? So it's going to be a state switch between hide and show, visible and invisible. Okay, very easy job. So down here inside the header, we've done the header part actually. So we write a new list, give a name of nav, that's going to contain our navigation. And inside here, what we're supposed to do is to write a whole bunch of list items that contains the anchor tag like this, right? So each of them will contain the navigation name, like the home, other page name. So we're going to repeat all of this. That's how we're going to do in the vanilla JavaScript, where we are building the website using the original HTML. But this is a React app. React app hates repeating. That's the key things to remember. React app hates repeating. Whenever you want to repeat yourself, your code is not dry anymore, and you want to think about if there's a way in React that I can remove that repeating, or use some way to create your item in a component. So the way to do so is that whatever you're going to repeat, that thing, the repeatable item, is going to be a separate component. We wrap this thing into a separate component, and we load that component here using data mapping instead of rewriting it. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to the component folder. We'll create a new component to store our nav list item, and that name is going to be nav list items JSX and RFCE to create a boilerplate. I'm going to call those few things that we're not going to be using right now. So that one's done, and very soon we'll create another new component which is the CSS file. I imported it back. Nav list item.css, save that, so you have that thing back. And now here, instead of writing this, we're going to build our nav list item inside a component and import it here. Okay, so far we just leave it blank. And then going to our nav list item, what we're going to do is that instead of writing this div, we delete it. We're going to write everything in a list. So that's going to be the list that contain our anchor tag. And anchor tag, so far we just give a hash. And here we're going to load the name of that nav, and also we're going to enable the on-click events later on. Whenever the user click on it, it should lead the user to another page, right? So we're going to have those things to do. We know that in this child component, we're going to show the name of that navigation, and the name of that navigation can be passed from our parents component. So inside here, we can say we're going to take a nav, which is the name of that navigation, as a property, and show that property here. Okay, so that's how we're going to do it. And then inside our parent component, we're going to create or import that navigation item. So that list item got imported, which is the one we just built. And look at above, it has been imported from that folder, which is correct. And then now you can have it. Say for example, if we give that name property, say the first one, maybe we give the name, let's just say home. And now that thing has been taken as a property value of home, gets passed into our child component of this nav property. We can show that on the browser. We'll just say nav. So whenever we use that nav represents the property value of home because we use it like that. And then you're going back. It's probably hidden over here, right at the top corner. Haven't given any styling yet, not to be able to see. But that's okay. Let me just give a bit of a styling to it so you can see it. So in the nav list item CSS, we're going to define our nav position. So far, I pasted in, so I remove that one and make sure that one is right at 0. And enable it to see, we have to remove these 2 lines, otherwise it's invisible. Yep. And then we can see that. And then the next thing I'm going to put in the color of the font. This is the list item. We're going to make sure that it has a list style of none. Make sure the font color inside is white. Otherwise, it will have the the same color of our theme color. That's why it's invisible before, because initially we defined our anchor tag font color to the cyan blue, which is exactly the same as our theme color. That's why it looks the same and disappear. And now I reset it to white, it shows up here. So, and you can see, this is how the parents and the child components working. We create a child component, and we inside the parents component, we define a property for it and link that to a value. And that property gets passed into our child component, and we can use that child component property to show that value that we created in the parents component. This is the beauty of React. Okay, but so far I'm gonna say, is this gonna be saving a lot of works? Is this gonna be non-repeatable? If you're gonna have a second item inside our navigation, you're still gonna repeat this line of code. Yes, you're right. That's why we're not gonna do it in this way. We're gonna do a data mapping and map our entire navigation instead of repeating this one. Say for example, I'm repeating this one to a second one, and then this put in other page name, save it, and then you show it here, it says other page. No, that's not the way I'm supposed to do, because this is still repeating. Okay, remove that. What I will do, this is when I get to use the data folder, which is to store our static data inside the application, and we will have that data prepared already, which is the nav list data.js. And inside this file, you will see I have predefined all the list item as an array, and each of them will be an object that contains a unique ID, the link where you want our navigation to link the page to, the name of it, if it's active or non-active. This is very important, because the navigation on active should have a different CSS styling from the remaining navigation. And initially, we want to set our home navigation to true and the remaining to false. Whenever a user click on the navigation, and this active status should be changed accordingly as well. So this one is true. If the user click on the vehicle one should be true, and that one need to be reset to false. Okay, and we export it down here. And now we have our navigation data, and then we're just gonna go back to our header to import that data so we can use it. So on the top, what we're gonna do, we're gonna import the data first. So we say import nav list data. It has the automatically importing working, so it's imported already. And then down here, we're gonna set a new state variable const to store that nav list data. So we say nav list, and then set nav list. That one equals to use state. The initial state could be an empty array, and then we're going to use the use effect hook to set that local state to the data. But because it is local data, it's not like a third-party one, and the easiest way is just to set that initial state to that nav list data. See? So initially, we're going to set our local state variable nav list to the nav list data that we have prepared in this file. Okay, and save that. Now we have everything in this file stored in this nav list. That's going to be an array. We're going to map this array into our nav list item. So regardless of how many items you have in this file, it will be mapped in few lines of code over here. This is called how you remove that repetitive job, right? The data is not repeating because every data is different, but you are not repeating the same code structure over here, right? So down here in the nav, and what we're going to do, we write a JavaScript. We say the nav list, because we have that data, dot map. We use the JavaScript higher order array function to achieve that data mapping. And each nav inside it, we want to map it into what? Into this nav list item, right? So we're just going to copy the line of code and map it here. Normally, if you only have one line of code to return, you could just put it there straight away, but I like to put in the brackets just to make the code look cleaner. And now you have that. Whenever you do a mapping in React, you're going to have to make sure you give a key to the item that's being mapped. This is a built-in property. The key should be the nav.id. Where do we have this one? Underscore ID, which is this one, the property inside here. So each individual object have a property called ID, and that is unique. You need to make sure the ID is unique, otherwise it will give you an error. So now we assign that ID as a key to that being mapped item. Okay, and instead of hard coding home, now we can use the property inside the data because we have the name property that contains the name of that list item. Okay, so now we could say that name equals to nav.name, but why don't we just put the entire thing as an object and assign that to the property, which is easier, because later on if you, on your child component, you want to use other properties, say for example, you want to use the active property, you're going to do the property assignment again, right? So I'm just going to assign everything in this nav to a nav property. Okay, these two are different. This nav represents this nav. This nav is every single object inside our JavaScript file. But this nav is the property name nav. It's going to be used inside our child component, which is this one over here. And now you can have the entire object. Okay, so here instead of saying nav, we can now have the entire object, which is this one. We're going to access the name property inside our nav list item. So here we say .nav, because you have the entire object. You can access one of the property in the object using the period, right? This is the JavaScript syntax. And if you're going back to the browser, you will see how easy that could be to have the whole list of the list item in the navigation all mapped all together with only basically one line of code. If you go back to the header, you'll see this is one line of code. Even I wrap it with a JavaScript curly braces, this is one line of code. No repeating, right? And later on, if you want to change your navigation, do you need to touch your code? No, you just need to touch your data file. This is what we call you separate your data from your code. Because data can be changed, can be manipulated, can be amended. That's absolutely normal. But if you mix them all together, whenever you want to amend your navigation data, you have to touch your code, which is not very, very acceptable in developing environment. Okay, this is a very good habit. Separate the data, always separate data from your code. And we have that done. And the next thing is we're going to trigger the function that will allow this navigation to show on and off whenever the user clicks on this button, but so far it's not linked together. How do we do that? We're going to do that by using some conditional rendering for the class name. And we're going to link that class name to our CSS file. Very easy, right? Because in the CSS, we have that navigation. Initially, we want to hide it. So I'm going to turn on this field code that I just commented out. Initially, we want to hide it. We have opacity of 0, visibility hidden, and we push to the far right, which is negative 300, means that it's going beyond my screen by 300 pixels on the right-hand side. So now remove that right 0. So now if you go back to the browser, that thing disappears because it's hidden on the far right. Yeah, it's invisible now. Whenever I click on this one, that thing should pop back from the right by 300 pixels, right? So we can define a class name like active. Maybe the navigation on active is going to be different. So putting this one back here, if the navigation is on a class name active, we're going to make sure it's touching the right to 0, opacity 1, and also visibility visible, and standing out from the crowd. So that one, that's how you get to show. We toggle an active class name between the original and the current navigation. So let's just try it out. If here in the navigation, I put on the class name active and save it, going back to the browser, that thing's there, right? But it's not working because we haven't linked to any trigger function yet. But if I remove that active, that thing disappears. The navigation is gone. So now you understand the only way to show and hide the navigation is to using that active class name. So we're just going to link that active class name to our JavaScript code to enable that trigger and the toggle function, right? Before we have set a toggle to open, why don't we just use it again over here? Because initially that should be false and later on to true. If we can link that true or false to active, we can enable this toggle, right? So I caught that original name. Here we're going to do a JavaScript conditional rendering of the class name. Curly braces to enable the JavaScript syntax. Backtick, we're going to do some template literal and paste in that original class name, which is a static one, and then $, double curly braces to tell the computer I'm going to write some JavaScript code inside here and return my JavaScript code as a string. That string will be wrapped as a part of my template literal and then be a part of my class name. Okay, this is like in ES6 much better way to handling string, because in the old time the JavaScript using the plus sign to handle string and substring, which is very, very messy. But now you have this better approach to do it. Just use it. This is called a template literal. Okay, and now here we just say we want to ask the computer if the open status is true or not. So say open question mark. If it's open, it's true. We want to show the navigation to the user. So we say if it's true, we're going to show the active class name. Otherwise, we'll say you could put in null or undefined, pretty much achieve the same purpose. Okay, now you have it. You have this active class name depend upon the local state variable open, and the local state variable open will be toggled on and off by our handle toggle menu function, which is injected into our menu icon. This is how you link that icon to navigation using one state variable. Very handy job, right? So we're just going to go back to our browser to see if it's working. You see that one? Have you seen that one magically working? Toggle on and off, move from the right, hide it, show it, hide it, show it, and also the menu, the icon at the top right also changes accordingly, according to your click events. Amazingly cool, right? Okay, we have our navigation done, which is beautiful. And our next job is to enable that active status of each navigation. Because so far, we don't know which page we are on. If we're on a home page, the home page one should show a different styling, either be a different color or some have a bar underneath it, any kind of styling you prefer. But so far it's not showing. And the way to show that different styling, like what I told you before, is to rely on this active property inside our data object. If it's true, we're going to show a different styling, and if it's false, we're going to hide a different styling. In that way, the user can know which page you are on or which navigation you have clicked on. And going back to our navigation, let's see, have we triggered any CSS effect for that yet? No. So far, we just defined the nav list item as a white font color, but I'm now going to define one more line of code like this. Basically by saying, if our navigation, you put a hover on it, hover your mouse on it, or it's on an active class, it's going to show the color of the secondary color that we predefined. And we're going back to the browser. Now if you hover on it, you can see the styling change. But I also want to make sure if it's on active, that one changes as well. How do we achieve that? Again, we're going to use the same trick, which is the conditional rendering in our class name. So going back to our nav list, and inside here, we're going to put a class name. That's not going to be a string. That's going to be a conditional rendering. So we're just going to put in the JavaScript, the curly braces, and basically saying, because we have that nav passed in as an object, so we can access that property active over here. And here we're just going to say nav.active. We're going to ask if this one is active, question mark. If it is yes, we're going to show the class name active. Otherwise, we're going to show undefined or null. Okay, so that's how we're conditionally rendering this active class name by using a JavaScript property active. And now in going back to the browser, we'll see the home has been showing the color of that sort of a dark black color, or close to that, and different from the rest, because home has been set to active by default. Right? So this one is true, remaining are false. If it's true, it shows that a different color, otherwise we hide it. Okay, and that's one thing done. Sometimes we want to see, in terms of the home, instead of writing a text word home, we want to use some icon, like a little house there, to indicate that's the home page, because that looks fancy. How do we do that? Because we only have one child component, are we going to create a different one for home specifically? No, we can do conditional rendering here, inside the JavaScript. Everything is achievable, okay? Instead of rendering the nav.name, straight away, we're going to say, do a bit of a coding by just saying, if nav.name triple equals to home, basically we're asking computer if it's a home navigation. If it's yes, we're going to render some icon. And the icon from the bootstrap icon, let's just say it find a home. Which one's better? I like this one. Home with a door. Copy that. Going back, put it there. Turn on the class name. If it's a home link, we're going to show this icon instead of a text word. Otherwise, colon, we're going to say nav.name. Okay, so now we can conditionally rendering this one instead of a hard coding or just showing one. And now if we're going back to the browser, we see the home one has been shown as an icon instead of a text word, okay, which is stand out from the rest. So you just expand your creativity and imagination. Everything is achievable in React.js. This is so far, I personally believe, the most amazing developer tools that every web developer should learn, regardless how good you are at the vanilla JavaScript or building those website template using vanilla JavaScript containing vanilla index HTMLs and CSS. You can do it that way, but you also need to learn a React way of doing things because it's two different logic. And also, And thinking about the cost of developing, the React one is more reusable, more maintainable compared with the traditional approach. Alright, we have this one done. And the next one is the onClick events. We want to click on each individual nav item and make sure that color changes to the active class name style as well. And the way to do that, we have to put in the property here in our parent component. Because the rule in the React.js is that when you have the events, the child component job is to raise that events, and the parent component's job is to handle that events. So you want to raise that onClick events, which is deal with the active status of each navigation item, inside our nav list item, the child component. And we're going to properly handle that events inside the parent component, which is the header. Okay, so here we could say that we write a function to deal with it. Just down below that handle toggle, we write a new function called handle nav onClick. Handle nav onClick. And the second thing to think about is depending on what that we can handle this onClick events. How come we clicked on this one and this one color changes to black and the remaining all change to white? Depending on what? Well, depending on the active property, right? So whichever one we click on, we want to set that active property specifically to the one we click on to true, and all remaining navigation items inside the array, that active status will be set to false. This is the logic. So the onClick events should first know which one you click on by knowing the ID of it, and then set the ID of that navigation active status to true. Okay, so we have to know the ID of the one you click on. So here we're going to take a variable which is ID, and then we trigger that arrow function. And so far we're just going to console.log that ID on to see if the onClick events is working. You don't have to build anything. We create a function here. We want to see whenever we click on, if we can console.log that ID, we're having to use that function. So copy that. Down here, we're going to pass that function as a property value to our child component. So in our child component, we just say nav onClick. So that's going to be a property name. We link that property to our handle function. Okay, link to that function. This is how we pass the function that we build in our parents into our child. And then once we have that, just copy that. Going to our child component, I'm going to move it here. We're going to pass in a second property parameter over here because we build it right here. You build the property here, and then you can use it by doing object destructuring in your child component. Doesn't matter how many you have, you can just keep going. And we have that one. And onClick events should be raised inside our child component at the anchor tag. So the anchor tag, besides it, we will put in the genuine onClick events. This is the JavaScript built-in one, and link that one to the nav onClick property function by doing another calling. And here we have to pass in a parameter because remember in the parent component, the handle function take a parameter of ID. We must give that ID. How do we pass in that? Remember, we also pass in the nav object, the entire object into our child component. We can access any property of that object inside here. One of them is the ID. Perfect. So here we just type in nav._ID. So that's how you pass in that ID into this function. And this function is actually linked to this function. Sorry, this function. And this function is this function. Eventually, we'll see the console.log events. Let's see if it's working. Going back to the browser, turn this off. Let me just open up the terminal on our console. Yeah, you can see I just click the vehicle and it shows the number 2 there because the vehicle ID is 2. If I click on service, it shows 3. I click on contact, it shows 4. Basically means that our onClick events is working. So I know it could be very challenging when you first write those functions in the React.js. You don't have to write the entire function in full. First, you want to make sure that it's all linking correctly between your different component layers by using this console.log trick. And then as soon as you can fetch the ID, you can deal with it. Okay? So now I'm going to show you how do we turn on and off that active events inside this function. We're going to do another mapping. Inside the mapping, we do the changing. So here we say const. We create a new variable called a new nav list. And we say that one is going to equal to our original nav list. We're going to go through that. the original nav list, which is this one, the entire array, right? We're going to map through that one. For each nav object inside the original array, we want to see, first thing, we want to set everyone's active status to false. Because we are going to a new navigation, only that one going to be true, and the remaining one must be set to false at the first, okay? So once you type in this code, regardless if it's true or false down here, it will all be set to false. We turn them off. And then we want to find the one that you click on and turn that one active status to true. How do we find it? We use the ID that we pass in, right? The ID that we pass in is the one you actually click on. So we do a if function or if statement here. If the nav in the original array's ID triple equals to the one you click on, and we set that one's active status specifically to true. Okay, very easy job. And once it's done, we just return that new navigation back to the array. So now you have the active status reset based on the one you just clicked. And then after you reset, you have a new array with a new active status contained in it, and you assign that one to a new variable called a new nav list. The last but not least job is to reset your local state nav variable by saying set nav list to the new variable, new nav list. If you don't do this, your local nav list variable will never be changed. Remember how the use state hook works: initial state, the final state, and also how you want to deal with it, how you want to change it, amend it. If you want to, every time you want to amend it or change it, you have to reset it using the set function, right? So this is how we're going to do it. So once you do that, whenever you clicked, the active status should be changed to the one you click on. And this thing gets passed in as a function to the child component, so it's all linking up together. So if I click on the second one, you will see, magically, the vehicle color stay as black. Even without my mouse hovering on it, it still stays as black, okay? So that one is working absolutely all fine. Whichever one I click on, that one color changes. And this one is working all fine. Beautiful. Okay? So one last thing for the navigation, we're going to build this one incomplete, is to turn on the routes. Because later on, we're going to enable whichever one you click on, this one should go to that place. How do we turn on that routes? Here we're going to use some third-party library things called from the React router DOM. If we use that anchor tag, let's say that you want to put it on the nav dot, let's say what's the property, dot link. If you put it here, that's absolutely okay. It has the routes parameter here already been defined. But the problem is that using this anchor tag will give you the flink every time you click it to other page. It flinks the page. It's like it's a swapping. It's not that gentle and smooth. But there's a much better way to do so. Instead of using the anchor tag, we can use something in the React router DOM called link. So we just put in link, and they ask you, do you want to import that from React router DOM? Yeah, that's the one. Make sure it imports correctly. Import link from React router DOM. And then you have to change the closing tag as well to link. Link does not have the ref property. The property you use called to, which is same as href, right? And then you just rewrite your anchor tag with your link tag. Nothing else gonna change. So if you're going back to your DOM, let's see. I probably haven't installed that React router DOM from my page yet. Yeah, that's right. We just imported the link from the React router DOM, but I haven't imported at the beginning at the global environment. So what I will do, I have to wrap it. Just a quick fix. How do we use something from the React router DOM? Is that we have to wrap things inside our index.js file with that React router DOM. Otherwise, your app couldn't be able to use it. So inside here, we're going to put on another tag called the browser router. Browser router, opening and closing tag. We're going to put our entire app inside that browser router. And you can see that browser router, where it comes from. That browser router comes from the React router DOM. We wrapped everything inside here, and it's working now. Okay, so we just have to make sure that you do this job first for the React router DOM. Otherwise, it won't work. And now going back to here, since we installed that React Router DOM, we can use all the components in it. The link is the same as the anchor tag. But it allows you to give you a better animation transition. It doesn't have that anchor tag, the flink effect. And now everything's still working. As you can see, this route is changing. The route is changing to that the routes are ready. Because we click on it, there's a home one. That one goes to /vehicles. Click on the service, that one goes to /service /contact. This link is working already. Okay, we haven't built that page yet. That's why it wouldn't load that page. As soon as we link that page to the router, whenever you click on it, that page will be switching. I'll show you later on. But so far for our navigation, all job is pretty much done here, all done. So close off this one. We're not gonna touch it for a while. And close off this one. Yep, that one we have wrapped that with the router, which is okay. This one is done. That's the navigation, all good. That's our header, all good. All right, so we've done our header part and it's showing all correctly. The next one we want to do is to do our banner. But remember, since we have installed our React Router DOM, what I'm going to do is to enable those routes over here in the app. And I will show you how to build a multiple page website using that React Router DOM. So over here, the way to do so is that we need to import a couple hooks from the React Router DOM. And the first one, I'm going to import, just type some comma, import React Router DOM. So we're just going to import curly braces. We're going to import the routes, and also we're going to import the route, singular and plural, from React Router DOM. Oh, it has automatic import. Not this one, because I type in a capital letter, from React Router DOM. Yeah, that one is done. So we have those two components which belong to the React Router DOM, and we import those, and we're going to use it down here. The way to enable routes and multiple page is to tell the computer how many routes you have and which component that route is going to be responsible for. That's the logic. Okay, very simple. So down here, do we need to assign a routes for header? No, the header is going to show on every single route. Doesn't matter which page you go, you always need to have the website header, right? So that's going to be a separate component, has nothing to do with the routes, so we leave it. And whatever you want to have something to do with the routes, we wrapped it inside the routes component. So here we say routes, the plural one, and then close your tag. Close your tag. We wrap everything inside here. So you think this is going to be working? No, it's not going to be working, because we have to tell the computer which routes is going to deal with the banner component. So we just cut it for now, and inside here we say route, and then this is going to be a self-closing component. You don't have to write anything here. We say exactly on that path. We have to tell the path of that component or that route, which is our home page, just a slash, right? And which element you want to load for that route, which is going to be a curly brace. And inside here, you type in your banner. Okay, I just missed a quotation mark. That's all working fine now. Okay, so inside the slash routes, which is the home one, because the home doesn't have any routes parameter, you want to load the banner. Okay, this is how the routing works. First, you create all the routes tag, and then you wrap each route inside that routes tag. Leave the header out. If you have a footer, say for example later on, you do have a footer tag down here, leave it out as well, because the footer is going to show on every page as well. That's not a part of the routes. The routes only deal with the one that you want to change on different pages. Okay, so that's how it works. Now if we're going back to the browser, you'll see nothing changes. It's still working. This is the home one. These are not working because we haven't built the other elements yet. Later on, when we build the vehicle elements, we can create a second route similar to this one, just change the component's name and change the path name, and then we can have that path name matches the navigation path name. So it's all linked up together. Okay, that's how the multiple page working so far. And now let's jump to the banner, which is to build our key part. And in this banner, we're going to access all of those vehicle data that we have predefined in the app.js file, because we fetch data here, and we share the data using that use context hook. We have the data here, and now we're going to take that data. And to take that data, we use the use context hook, and also here we're going to use the use state hook as well. And then we're going to tell the computer which context variable you're going to use. So we say import the app context from app. This one is what we exported over here. Because you export that app context variable, that's why you can import it over here. Okay? And then down here, we're just going to fetch all the variables that have been stored and passed inside that app context variable. We're going to do the object destructuring. We're going to have the data. Whatever value you pass in here, data, set data, you can put it here, right? So we're going to access data and set data, those two things. That two things comes from the use context hook, and you have to tell the computer which context variable, which is the app context. Okay, this is how you set up the thing for you to take the shared value from the super global layer in your child component. But think about it, the data is a very generic variable name. Essentially, we're going to use some specific variable name for this page. So we're going to rename it. This is the JavaScript syntax. When you do the object destructuring, if you want to rename the original property name, you can use this colon and then rename it to whatever name you want. I want to rename the data to cars because it contains all the cars, and rename set data to set cars. So in that way, it's more meaningful because data and set data is pretty generic. No one knows what's going on there. And then once we have that, what we're going to do is to start to do mapping down here. So inside our banner, let's say we're going to write a very huge mapping. Cars, map that car variable. Car, if it is truthy, we have to test out if we have successfully fetched the car data from the parents component. If it's truthy, we're going to do a second question, cars.length. If it's an empty array or not. If it's an empty array, it's going to be useless. We want the full array contain our vehicle data in it. So the length must be greater than 0. If this one is truthy, and then we're going to do the final mapping, okay? However, on the front page, are we going to load the entire vehicle data? Remember in the JSON, we have a 9 vehicle data over here. We're not going to do so many slides because that'll consume the user too many times to click on the slide button. We're only going to show the top 5. That's decent enough, okay? So here we're going to do a mapping by saying cars.slice. Slice is the sub-array function, which allows you to get a part of the original array. You have to tell where to start, where to end. We want to start from index 0 of that array and finish at the index of 4. 5 is not included, okay? So we slash that, and then we say map. So we only got 5 car elements in it, and then we map them into our child component. So far, we can write a div and give a class name of slide because we're going to have everything mapped into our banner slide. And inside our banner slide, let's test out if it's working. We're just going to, so far, h1 by saying car. Oh, I forgot to put in the map variable. Here I have to put in car, the map variable. Yeah, so we're going to take all the cars and map each individual car inside that array into our DOM elements component. So we're going to map them into a slide. And so far, I just want to show the car's name. Let's see which property is good. The car's title. Yep, so far I'm just going to do that. And because we have done this mapping, we have to do a key to enable each mapped element is unique. So that's going to be our car._id. So we have that done. We're going back to the browser. Yeah, going back to the browser, and you can see that 5 elements has been loading successfully on our banner page. Well, so far we only showed the 5 names, but you can tell from this 5 names that we have loaded data successfully, right? Later on, you know that we're going to fetch different part of the data elements inside this array, and then we're going to use it at the correct place on our banner. Right. Let's just keep building. Instead of mapping the name solely, we're going to do a bit of more job. Comment this out, I'll leave it on, that's okay. So think about how we're going to design this one, right? And here we're going to have a title area. And here we're going to have the main preview section where it shows either the vehicle preview image or the preview video. And down the bottom in the second row divided into 3 parts. Here we have another image, which is the one on left. In the middle we have a bit of a model description and stuff. And on the far right we have another image to make it look beautiful. So the entire page is pretty much divided into 2 rows, the top row and the bottom row. And the top row contains 2 sections, the left and right, and the bottom row contains 3 sections, left, middle, and right. That's our layout of the banner page, okay? And we're going to build everything upon this. So going back to the code editor, we're going to set up our structure. And in here, first we load everything inside our slide into a container, div.container. Fluid, this is the bootstrap thing. Container fluid basically means that you want to create a container that will take the 100% of the width of your screen. If it's a container, it will leave a margin on both sides, which is sometimes you use the full width, sometimes you don't. But for banner page, we want to take the full width. We create that and we wrap everything inside here. Remember I told you we have 2 rows, so I'm going to create a 2 row first. This is also the bootstrap thing. Without that, we have to do heaps of code, create that responsive layout. But so far the job is slightly easier. And then we're going to create a second row. So now we have a 2 row. We'll give the first row a special class name called banner top. And we'll give the second row also a special name, banner bottom. So we have them now. And then we know that in the first row, how many columns we have, how many sections we have. We have 2 sections, right? On the left section contains maybe the big title of that vehicle, and the right one is the preview image. So we created those layouts. So div, we're going to create a column on large screen, going to take a 4 column. The rule in the bootstrap is that each row naturally contains 12 columns. So how you're going to decide the width of each column or each item inside that row is using this 12. If it's 4, basically means that this column or this part is going to take 4 out of a 12 column in that row, sort of like a 1/3, okay? And the remaining will be taking like a 8 column, which is 2/3 of that row. That's how you divide up the area inside the row. And we have that 4, and the remaining just going to be an 8. So now we haven't put in any concrete text yet. We just set up the bootstrap layout for this section. And later job is going to be very easy. I want to make sure that all the column has no padding, because bootstrap comes with a natural padding on each column you created. And on a banner page, we want all the items to be touching on each other and give you a very solid and firm view. So the padding must be set to 0. P-0 basically means it's padding all gone. And we give this top column a special class name called banner top left, because this is the top left section. And this one we want to set to padding to 0, and we give a special name called banner top right. Okay, so we have that one row divided into 2 sections. One takes a 4 column, the other one takes 8 column, add up together 12 column. That'll take the whole row. Okay, and down here we're going to create another one. The first column, we wanted to take 4 column. That's a 4. And then we also set the padding to 0 as well to remove that off. If you don't set it, you're going to have to do it in your CSS file as well. But there's an easy way in the Bootstrap to allow you to do so. Use this Bootstrap setting smartly, but not heavily. Somebody think that, oh, the Bootstrap provides me with the handy stuff, I can just use it everywhere. And look at the style that I built in my application. The Bootstrap itself only pretty much touches the Bootstrap. If you want to build your own customized component, do not mix them together with the Bootstrap one, because the Bootstrap has its own CSS. If you mix your CSS file with the Bootstrap one, your one will overwrite the Bootstrap CSS, but sometimes it will cause a messy result. So the smart way to do so is to separate them out. The Bootstrap only controls the layout and the framework, and everything else, the customized component, will be wrapped inside the Bootstrap. That will allow your structure very clear. Okay. So we have this one. We just copy that to create a few others. And the second one, I don't want it to take a 4. I want to take a 5. And the last one, I want to take a 3. So you just add up yourself. 4 plus 5 plus 3 equals to 12, which will take the entire row. And that is okay. Okay, so now we have the entire Bootstrap structure set up for our slides, and we're just going to fill the content in each column. If you're going back to the browser, nothing's going to happen because this is just a framework and nothing has been loaded yet. Right, first thing first. First thing we're going to do is the title. So inside here, the banner top left, we'll give a div, and that's going to be banner title. And inside the banner title, I'll say h1, and inside I'll type get your dream. Get your dream car, but the car name is dynamic. It belongs to the car file, which is our mock API. Here you will have your model, and you'll have your car title and your car make. So you can use this as a dynamic variable to show on the page. And I'm going to use the car make just to get the brand name. And by the way, this vehicle website is designed to sell those second-hand luxury sporty car. So I'm collecting the data all from the Lamborghini, McLaren, and also the Maserati, all of those kind of cars. And we have that one done. If you're going back to the browser, you can see all of those car title, the make, get your dream car for each one of those getting showed off. So far it's showing all of them because we haven't done the sliding effect yet, but later on I will show you how to show only one of them at a time. So you have that one done. And in the CSS, I'm going to show you if you only want to show one of those and hide the remaining 4, how do you handle that? Because if you look at this page, it's the same logic as the navigation that we built previously. Every object inside the vehicle data has an active property. When that one shows to true, that one should be built by the user, and all the remaining false one should be hidden, right? So we use the same kind of logic to create our app. So back to here, we're going to do a conditional rendering of our slide right at the beginning at the top. Where we write a slide? Here. So each car or each slide should have an active class. If that slide is active, we will show it. If that slide is non-active or the active is false, we're going to hide it. Okay, so we write this one, cut the static part, and turn it into a JavaScript. We know that's going to be a template literal. We know that's going to have a static class name slide. And then later on, the money sign double curly braces allows the JavaScript. Each car have an active property. We're going to use that. So basically we say here car.active. If that's true, we're going to put on an active class name to this slide. Otherwise it will be undefined. So now our slides can be conditionally rendering depending on the car's active status. Okay, then the next job is to in our CSS to write something to enable that slides on and off effects by using this active class name, right? So we're just going to do something over here. So first we're going to do a definition for the banner. I put on the position relative. We're going to take the whole screen width, minimum height of 100 vertical screen, and padding 0, transition ½ second. If there's any overflow on the horizontal line, that's going to be hidden. So that's the definition for the entire banner. And for our slide, originally we want the position to be absolute. We want to sit at the top right with a minus 100%. It's the same logic as our navigation that I showed you previously. You want to hide your slide. I want you to hide on the far right, outside your current screen by 100% of its self width. And then you will take the whole vertical screen, and then you're going to hide it. Okay? But whenever you turn on the active class name for that slide, this thing should be removed off and show. So the next line will be slides.active. We want to make sure it moves back from the right. So previously it's right negative 100%, but now it's touching the right with 0. and opacity 1 and visibility visible to show it. Okay, so now if you save those, make sure you link that banner CSS file, and then going back to the browser, you will see only one title gets to show to the user. And what is that? What is that? Because the remaining 4 has been hidden. The remaining 4 all have that active property set to false. If that active property is set to false, basically means this class name won't be turned on. It will show undefined. If it's undefined, this part of the slide will be working and is invisible, right? So that's why we hide it. Okay, we have that simple job done with just one line of job, one line of code, and a couple of lines of CSS. Let's just keep doing the other part. And then going back to our banner page, down here, I'm going to show the user which slide number you are on, because we are building the slide on our own. We're not relying on any third-party libraries or swipers to build it. So I'm going to create a span and give the class name of slide number. And inside here, we're just going to show the user the slide number is actually the ID of the car, right? So start with a 0 and then car._ID. Because if you look at the routes, each one got an ID. If the 1 basically means that this is the first slide, 2 is the second slide, and then going there, the ID is there, 0, 1. So we have that. And we look at the browser again. So far, that title is sitting at the right top. So that's going to be pretty ugly because it's overfloating that header. So we're going to move down a bit to make sure it's sitting at the correct position. So in the banner CSS, we're going to keep typing few lines of code. First, we're going to make the banner top left and the banner top right all position relative. And then we're going to do, basically we're going to turn on the CSS for the banner title, which is this one, the entire banner title section, that one there. Save it. First, we're going to take the height of 65% of the vertical screen. That 65 VH means vertical screen, we're going to take 65%. So that means the top row will be wider than the bottom row, slightly. And we want to make sure it displays flags, everything sits in the middle, and give a certain padding. And we're going to make sure that it has some animation effect whenever we change the slides. So originally, we gave a transform of translate x to 300 pixels whenever the slide gets turned on active status, and that one goes to 0. This is how you can do the animation of that horizontal movement. And initially, we want to hide the text words, and then when the slide is on active, we want to make it visible. But so far, only one gets to see. As you can see, once we put that on, this one is there already. It's sitting in the middle. And then we want to make sure that H1 inside our title to have a special font, this one. So over here, we'll just say H1, we'll give a racing font, make it larger, and then going back, it looks much nicer. That one's done. And in terms of the slide number so far is sitting at the far right, at pretty small. We want to make sure it sits down the bottom of this area. So we give that a position absolute, left the bottom 0, height 120, give a certain width, and also change the font, change the color, and make sure it's very large and bold. And now it's sitting over there, very beautiful. So whenever the slide changes, this number will change to the number of that slide. Okay, so we have that one done. And on the next one, what we're going to do here is a magical thing inside the title area that we want to put in. Not a title area actually, the one just below the title. Over here, in the banner top left section, after the title, we're going to have to build a slide switch button. So the user must have something to click on to trigger all of those slide switching events. So we're going to build a button over here, and whenever the user click on it, we will see all the animations going on. This is the soul part, the crucial part of the entire banner page. That'll make the banner page alive. Okay. And on the second thought, should we write a button directly over here, or should we put a button in a separate component? Because this button is going to be a very sophisticated button. It contains all the functions and features in it. My idea is to put it into a separate component. So up here, in the component folder, we just create a new component called slide button. .jsx, enter rfce to create that one. And then in the same folder, slide button.css, create a CSS file, and then we imported it back. Slide button.css, create that one there. So now we have it. And once we have it, even though we haven't built anything so far yet, but we can import it over here by just saying that slide button imported, close the brackets. So now you have all the elements linked up together. And then you think about what a slide button should be looking at. And so far it's just a text box that we put in, but we want to make it look nicer. So we're going to the slide button. Instead of returning that, we're going to return an angle tag. So brackets. And that's going to be a angle tag with a class name of slide button tab. And inside here, we're going to give a icon, so the user knows that this is something to click on. And then we're going back to the Bootstrap icon. I'm just going to use a play, which is this one, play fill. Even though it's not for video, but it indicates that things can go on right. So I'm just going to use this one because it looks very thick. And paste that in, change the class name, and that one's done. So if you're looking at the browser, so this one gets shrunk down to a teeny tiny cyan triangle there. You can hardly notice, but what I will do in the CSS file, I'm going to make this one looks nicer. So over here, I give the slide button a position absolute, right bottom 0, make sure it looks like a square, and the background color of our theme color, when you hover on it, it'll be our secondary color. And also you want to align all the items horizontally and vertically in the center, and the font size gets expanded as well. Once you save that, going back, so that will line up together with the slide number, all sitting on your first part, which is the top left corner. The top left corner, in terms of the layout and looking, it has been finished. But now we're just going to trigger on the click events of this button. When you click on it, the slide should change, the text bar should change, the number should change, right? So we're just going to be doing that. Going back here, very easy thinking is that how are we going to trigger the on-click events? Again, the principle in the React.js, the child component will raise that event. So we raise the on-click events inside slide button. However, the parents component will handle that event. So the banner will handle it. Okay, so here we write a function at the top, basically saying that we're going to handle that slide change. Below it, const handle slide change. And you have to think about, depending on what do we handle the slide change, we're also going to depend on some ID or index. In this case, we use index of the array. That's going to be an arrow function. And so far, we're just going to console.log. That index, that's very easy. So copy that function, and you want to make sure that this one got raised over here. So in the child component, we say slide change. This is a property name that I create for the child component to raise that event. Slide change equals to we pass in that because it's going to take a parameter, which is the index. So what we can do here, we pass in that as a function, slide change. Yeah. And then we're going to pass in another thing. We're going to pass in the index. Which is our index of the array. Here in the mapping built-in parameter, there's an index parameter that's given by the map function. It's rarely used, but sometimes when you want to handle complicated array animations, you're going to use that one. So instead of using that car parameter only, what we can also do is that we use to here we put in car and also the index. The index is the built-in variable of the map function. It represents the index of that object inside that array. Okay, the index starts from 0. The first item will be index 0. The second item will be index 1. Okay, that's what our index for. And we want to use that to trigger our slide function. So I put it here, and also we want to pass it over here as an index. We're just going to use that. Yep. So that one is done. For our slide button, we have the function ready. We have our index ready. And now going back to our slide button, object destructuring, we're going to fetch that index property. And then we're going to fetch that slide change function, which is this one. We have to raise this function inside our child component. So here, we're going to put a onClick event to raise that event. That's going to be an arrow function to call it slide change. And then over here, we put in that index. Okay, so now we get to use both of our properties. One is the function, we raise that, and we have to pass in the parameter of that index into that function. Once it's done, we are basically calling the function from the parent component, which is this one. And hopefully our index number will get logged on our console. Let's try it on the browser to see if this one works. Back to our browser, and turn on the console. And then I click on the button. As you can see, that's 0. That 0 there gets console.logged. It's working. I click again, it's logged twice. Because so far I just console.log the slide index I'm currently on, which is the first one, index 0. So it's all working. Now, this one has all been linked up. The next job is to do the slide changing. The slide changing is like whenever you click on the next button, which is this button, you don't want to show the current index. You want it to jump to the next one, right? That's the logic. How are we going to do that? So we're going to do a mapping function as well over here. So basically, we want to see car.map. And for each car inside here, we're going to take the car object and also the index as well. We want to see which one you're clicking on, so which one is going to be the next. So inside here, we write a function. The function is that first we want to turn off the active status for every car object. So we set car active to false. Okay. So once you've done that, if you look at array, each one got an active property. That one has been turned to false. Once you add that, all of them will be turned to false. And then on the next line, we want to see, because we want to show the next slide when we click on that button. So the next slide active status must be set to true, not the current one. Remember, this is different from the navigation that we did before. The navigation is that the one that you click on right now will be turned on to true in terms of the active status. But this is the next one, you want to turn it on to true. But the current one is false. So the way to do so is not to using the ID, because the ID cannot tell this one or the next one. The way to tell this one or next one in an array is to use the array index, right? So that's why I use that index. We say if the index, which is the index of the current item inside our class array, triple equals to the index that you click on, or to find the next one plus 1. This is how you find the next one in the slide. If you only use this one, the index of the current object equals to the index you click on, it will be no different from our navigation. Basically, you are setting the current slide CSS, but we want to set the CSS style for our next slide. So our next slide is going to be found using index plus 1. If the index equals to the index plus 1, basically means we found the next one. We want to set the next car object's active status to true. This is how we can handle it, okay? And then once we've done that if, we return the car. Alrighty, so now we have our car reset, and the active status of the next one will be set to true. So once you've done that, we want to reset our data, because we're going to remap our car array on our DOM with the new active status. How do we do that? The easy approach is to assign this one to a new variable, and then this is going to be your new cars. And then you use this set car function to set a new car, right? But I want you to go a bit further. Instead of writing in that lazy way, we can do a fancy way, which is chain these two functions all together. So we know that this part of the code will return a new array that contains the new active status of each object. And this new array will be reset using our setCar function. Why don't we just do them all together at one step? Okay, this one will be working. So now we have everything done. Once we've done that, we're going back to the browser. If we click on it, you can see the next one pops back. See? The next one comes in. Get your dream car Maserati, the text was changing. Get your dream Lamborghini, the text is changing. That basically means that our slide and all animation is working as well. Beautiful. But when I click this one more time, you will see something happen. This is the Maserati on number 5. When I click again, it disappears. Nothing gets to show on the DOM. I have to refresh the page for them to be reloaded. Why is that happening? What's wrong with our slide function? Have a look. Here I have no protections. This thing will be keep going on and on and on. It will be going to +1 every time I click the button. Once you reach the limitation of the array, because we only have 5 items in our array, where is it supposed to go? It will go to the 6th one, but the 6th one is not showing. Okay, so that's the reason. We have to do some protection before this one to reset the index and create an infinite loop. Whenever it reaches the last item in the array, I want to go back to the beginning using that index as well. So here I would say another function, if index, the index that you click on, is greater or equal to 4. What I want to do is that I manually set that index to -1. The reason why I set it to -1 is because on the next step, when it +1, it'll go back to 0. So we will have whenever it reaches 4, it'll go back to 0, which is the first item in your array. Okay, so that's how we make the loop happening in the slide. This is a purely few lines of code without relying on any third-party library. And it's quite easy as well. Everyone can do it. Yeah. Whenever you see a slide or carousel, you think this is must be some fancy stuff, contains complicated code. I cannot do it on my own. I have to rely on some third-party libraries, install that. Well, you can if you want to save time or you want to achieve some even fancier purpose. But for simple slider, React.js is really easy to handle. And now if you're going back, this is just going to reload that. This is on 1, and this is a 2, 3, 4, 5, and magically it goes back to 1, you see? So whenever you reach 5, the index will be reset to 0, and it goes back to the first item in your array. So this one becomes the infinite loop. Magical. Oh, amazingly awesome. Right, super cool. So now we have finalized the sole part, not the sole part, a very important, crucial part of our banner page. So the remaining job will just for us to fill up the content on each corner. Let's just jump here and do that. And so the next part is going to be the top right section, which will take the 8 column, and we will have the banner image and the banner video contained in it. And we're going to enable the toggle function, which allows the switch between the image and the video. All right. So first, we're going to build a div and give a section name, a class name, a banner image. So that will contain our image. So inside here, what we're going to do is we're going to access that image from our mock API. Because if you look at our mock API, it has that banner image, left image, right image, and the page background image. Now that page background image, we're not going to touch it now. We're going to use it when we come to the page building. But so far, we're going to use these 3 images, the banner, left, and right. So here what we can do is that we put in that image and give the class name image fluid. And the source, we're going to access it from the API because we are mapping this API data using this car, and we have the car object, so we could just say car.bannerImage and save it back to the browser. You see that image is there already, and that looks good to me. And the next thing is that we're going to do some CSS to style that image to make sure it looks nicer. So close off the button that we have done already. So going to the banner.css file and continuing that, we're going to define the image below. So the image takes this couple of lines of CSS code. Initially, we want the image to be scaled to 0, basically means it shrinks to nothing, and it sits on the top left. So as soon as the slice gets active, we want the image to expand to scale 1. So that's how we design it. And we save it, and you can see that image looks much larger. And if we change it, that image gets popped in, and it has the shrinking in and zoom out effects. Really, really cool. It looks like this on the banner page, all the parts in the banner page has been depart when you make the switch, but they get to pull together when the slide change finish. It looks really amazing. Alright, so the image is done. And back to our banner. The next step is to add on our video. Because here's a toggle or switch between image and video, we have to enable that. So below that, we create a new component that's called a video. So in this video, it's going to link the video that I predefined in our JSON file. As you can see, here's a video that links us to the video that I have stored in our assets folder. I have shown you this video before in the earlier video. So here, inside the video, we just want to make sure that source coming from car.video. And we're going to give a class name. And that's called banner video. And we want to make sure that this video has a few features. One is called autoplay, because we want it to automatically play whenever we toggle it on, instead of we click on the play button to trigger it. And we want it to loop, so once it finishes, it will just loop itself. And we want it to mute it without making any sounds. So we set those features to it. And going back to the browser, you will see that video is just below it. Just below it. Below it. So all the videos has comes in. And we want to make sure that video and image only gets to show one at a time instead of showing both. So to enable that, we just have to do a bit of more CSS down here. It's very easy. You just need to add a CSS class name, and using that class name to toggle each one of those, we can make sure that one gets displayed to none, and then when we put on a new class name, and make sure that display to block. So it's a very easy job to handle in the CSS. So here, we write it in this way. For the video, initially we want to display none, also give a height of 65% of the vertical screen, and object fit cover, make the line the center. And when it's on active, we want to display it as a block. So that's how we hide the video. If you're going back now, so now the video gets hide. Okay? So that one's done. And for the image, if you look at that, this is the banner top, right in the banner top. This is the image we are looking at, which is this one. We want to make sure this one share the same kind of a class setting for the video, because if the video is hidden, the image shows, right? Otherwise, if the image is hidden, the video should show. So this one is one over another. So these two must be linked together. So down here, what we can do is that we add in these few lines of code. So we say that slide banner top and image active. So we use that active class, same as this one. If that one is active, and we display block, otherwise the image is going to be showing none. So we just hide that. So now the image is gone as well, because we haven't turned on this active status for them. So to show that, what we can do so far is just that we add a active class to that image, and it is supposed to show straight away. And you can see the width gets shrink down as well, or the height, because I have enabled that 65% of the vertical screen over here. So now it looks all okay for me. Yeah. But in terms of the function that trigger these toggle effects between the video and image, I'll come to it later when we build a navigation over the top right section. So just leave it there for now. All right. So we have the image done, we have the video done, and then the next step is that for us to come to that navigation of this section. And also remember, we will have some few progressive circle bar in the middle, and those things are going to be used to show the power, the depreciation, and also the speed, all the features of that vehicle. So we use that cool circle bar to do it. And to do so, we're going to create a new div just below the video. Here we say div car brief. Just a brief introduction of the car. And in here, we have two things to set. One is the div.car intro. So we have that. And then we have another thing to be put it over here, which is the div dot car nav. So we'll have our navigation, the small navigation stored over here. And inside the intro, we're going to put in that circle bar. So instead of writing that code straight over here, because we will have 3 circle bar listed here, what I will do, I will build a separate component and inject that component here. So inside the component folder, I'll create a new one called circle bar .jsx rfce, that one there, and then I'm also going to create a CSS file, circle bar .css, and that one there. So in here, I'm just going to import that CSS file. So that one gets imported all together. And here, I'm just going to import that circle bar. Circle bar imported. So if you look at the browser now, it's just showing there as a text box. Because when we create a component, the text box comes in as a default as a part of the component boilerplate. So the so far is showing this text box, but once we finish, it will show that beautiful, cool circle progressive bar for us. To do this circle bar, there's a couple of things we need to think about. First, each circle bar will have a different name because it's for different purpose. Either it's for speed or for the cost power or for the depreciation. We need to define a name of it. And we need to know what's the percentage of it. So we must have a percentage number, right? And we want to have this circle bar to be in a different color. So we must define the color of it. So this bar is a 100% dynamic based on the feature that we put in. So I'm going to define 3 properties for it. One is called the number, the percentage number. The other one is the name, and then the color. We'll have those 3 defined before we use them. And here in the circle, instead of writing that, I'm just going to create a class called the percentage. And in here, I'm going to put in SVG. It looks like it doesn't allow me to create an SVG straight away, so I'm just going to manually tap it. Cool. So I'm going to create SVG. Inside SVG, I will do those circles. So the first thing will be a circle. And inside the circle, I'm going to put in the diameters and the position on the x and y in it. So I have cx equals to. Here I hard code those things, but you can make those dynamic as well. If you want to make the circle shrinks a bit bigger or smaller, you can make this measurement dynamic as well. So we have the y. So far, I just set them all to 70. And we have the r equals to 70 as well. So you have 1 circle done. That's the out circle. To make sure the circle looks nice, we will have 2 circles overlaying each other. And the second one, when it overlays the first one, it'll show you that the ring effect. The second one will have the same diameter and everything, except that we're going to give a bit of a different styling later on. So once we have that done, outside SVG, we're going to define our number, which is the percentage. So inside here, I give a h2, and I will say that we need to put in that variable there, which is a property value. We want to see what percentage that is, and we want to make sure. Here I'm just going to write a span, and then give a class name of title. And here we want to put in the name because we need to show different circle with different name and different percentage. So that's how we're going to do it. And in terms of the CSS, that's the HTML. That's pretty much it. Yeah, it's a very simple project, but it's more works on the CSS part. I'll show you how to do it. So in terms of the percentage, we want to make sure it has a certain height and width. It has to be a square and a border radius of 50 pixels. So we have that one done. And in terms of the number, which is this one, we want to make sure it has a position absolute sitting in the middle of the circle. So we have this part of code. And inside the number, we have the title, and also we have the percentage. So we make sure those things look like that. Give a very gray color. Make sure the font weight is very thick, and expand the size. Make sure it's italic. That's that. And in terms of the SVG, we also have to define the height and width of it, which is this tag. So here I just type in the percentage SVG. It has to be the same width and height of your percentage, otherwise it won't look nice. Alright, so far we have those things done. And if we're going back to the browser, it will show nothing there, and it's pretty ugly because we haven't finished it. And the reason so is because here we used a couple properties. I will want to make sure these properties is provided at the parent component. So say for example, we want to provide the first one, and we give it a name. Let's say we want to show that the power of the car. And by the way, this name and all the things, all the features of the cars are just randomly picked, and you can just do the one you favor or you think is more appropriate from the car website. And inside the number, this feature coming from the API routes. As you could see, we have the power data, the engine data, the depreciation data, all here. So even the kilometers, all here. So you can just use this data and inject it into your code editor here. So the number, we're just going to do the first one will be power. The first one going to be power. And then the color. The color can also be injected as a string. So later on, our circle can be conditionally styled based on the color variable you put in. And the first one, I just want to put in the color of that color there, sort of like a red color. So this has to be hard coded. You can pass a variable here, but you have to define it before, or put it simple that you just hard code that color. It's not that bad because you only have a few circles. If you have a heap of this kind of job, want to do those color variables as a property, you can predefine this color somewhere else, and then you load it here. That's absolutely okay. So for the first one, we have this thing passed in. And if we're going back to the browser, you can see that 90% of the power has been shown on. But the background, the circle effect haven't come out yet. And that is because we haven't finished the circle bar over here. So going back, we'll just keep building our circle CSS. In terms of the circle, because we have defined the width and height of the SVG, the circle is wrapped inside the SVG. We give the height and width 100%. And we'll use that stroke effect to do that ring effect at the end. Okay? And once we've done that, we're going back to the browser, that one disappear because we have it at the end of the stage, we have to input that stroke color as a CSS as well. But that stroke color is actually a conditional one. It's a dynamic one. So instead of hard coding here in the CSS, I would do is to put our CSS inside the React file as a dynamic thing. So here, what I will do is that in the second circle, where you will show the CSS effect, I will put in that style variable like this. So the second circle will have a style of the stroke, which is defined to the color that we defined in our property. And also we make sure that the stroke has an offset, because you know when you show the progressive bar, 100% will be the entire ring, okay? But if it's not reaching 100%, the ring should not be shown in full. It only shows a part of the rings. We want to hide the remaining. We use the stroke offset effect to define that as a calculation. So if you have that percentage number, you can pass in as a dynamic variable to define how much percentage you want the ring to be covered by that specific color. So now if you're going back, it shows that in full because I haven't done the entire job yet. There's a few more lines of code to amend. And we're just gonna put the final line of code here. For the second circle, not the first one, we also want to add in this final CSS for it. Once you add that, let's have a look at the browser. So going back to the browser, as you can see, that thing is not 100% covered. It's only covered by 90%. So that's how we do it. The percentage of that colored circle ring, depending upon the percentage you put in here. If it's 1%, it's only going to be covered by 1%. 50% is only going to be covered by half. Okay, so that's how we make it really, really dynamic, purely depending on the property you injected in over here. So that's all done for the SVG part. And now I'm just going to, as a lazy job, to repeat this circle bar because we only have 3. And if you want to do it more professionally, like what I told you before, what you can do is that you build your data file for the circle. and you map that into your circle. Okay, that's absolutely okay. But so far, because we only have few, and we're just gonna save it work. It's a trade-off actually. Sometimes it's a trade-off between doing it more in a more professional way and a sophisticated way, and compared to the quality and the result of your code. And if it takes many more work and time for you to do it professionally, but the result is only going to be changed very tiny, you might reconsider it. React is a very flexible developing tool. It's up to you how you want to do it. So the second one is not power. I copy and paste engine, and we have the engine data pre-stored in our API file as well. And I'm just going to give another color. So instead of that one, and then we're going to key in this one. So we have our second one done as well. And the last one, copy this one and put it in, save it. It's going to be new. New means how much percentage is the car is new. Basically, it shows the user the depreciation level of this car. If it's 80% new, basically means it only depreciates for like 20%. That's it. So, and this one we're going to show in the features of new, and give a new color of that one. So now we have 3 progressive bar all finalized, and it's showing over here. The alignment isn't correct, but the 3 bars correct. As you can see, this ring, the color area has been covered by 90%, this one has been covered by 80%, and this one is 82%. The ring length, the percentage, goes with your number, okay? It's all dynamic. And now let's just go into the banner.css to do a bit of styling. These 2 parts are pretty much finished. I just close them off. So first we define our super parents class name, which is the car brief. We're going to give a height to our car brief. Put on that one in. So that height is 120 pixels. Just to ensure that this square is 120 pixels, and you want to make sure that all the elements down the bottom of your top row align in the end. So better give them the same height. It looks nice and neat. Alignment is a very important thing in the CSS design, and there's a couple of other principles you have to follow to have a decent website. The first one is the alignment, and also we want to make sure that it has a sufficient color contrast as well. And the next thing we want to do is that we want to define the introduction part, which is this. The 3 circles has all been wrapped into this car intro. So in the intro, we give a width of 50%, because remember the other 50 is going to be the navigation. So far, I make it disappear, visibility hidden, because it will only be shown when the slide is active. So over here, I put in the second part. When the slide is inactive, the card intro will be showing, and also we give that a animation effect of that transform translate Y from 50 pixels to 0 pixels between the slide change. Okay, so once that's done, we'll look at this. It's like an amazing corner cut from that image and put in these 3 circles. If you swap the page, and you can see this one pops up from the bottom. It has this amazing showing up.
Goodbye.
So that's just a noise from my serial. Ignore that. So you have this amazing on and off effect. All good, super cool, right? Okay. So now when we go back, the next job is to build a car navigation over here. So we have the intro done. Close that off. Next part is the nav. So we have to build this one. The nav is going to be a fairly simple job, except one key function in it is that toggle function. We have to allow the image and the video to be switchable under the click function of our navigation. And to do that, what we can do here is that we create those list item with the anchor tag. But again here, you can do a data file to achieve this, but I didn't do it just because we only have 3 of them. I don't want to waste too much time on the mapping. And the second thing is that each 3 of these have different features. They have a different functionality. They are not exactly the same. So instead of using mapping, I'm just going to build them individually to show you the difference. So here we build a list, and inside here, the first that we're going to show the user, you want to go to the detailed page of the car to see more specific information. So what we can do, we're going to import that link. Remember I showed you that in the React router DOM, we can import that link. This is the one from React router DOM. And then we close that tag. It automatically creates you this opening and closing tag in it. And here so far we just say detail. And you want to add an icon besides it, which is the right icon. So I'm going back to that bootstrap icon. And here I just say right. Short. Yeah, I found that one. Because we have a very narrow space here, and we just want a short arrow. And put that back in, and then class name. So now you have that. And the link is going to take us to, it's actually the individual page. But we haven't come to build an individual page of each car item yet, so far I just leave it blank. Okay. And the second one, which is the most important one, I'm just going to copy that list down here. It's going to be our video toggle. So this one, when we click on it, it should trigger that toggle function between image and also the video. So first, the name has to be dynamic as well, because if it's on the video, it should show image. If it's on image, it should show video. So the name has to be switchable as well. How do we do that? We must use some kind of a amazing local state variable to enable that switch. So we build it now. Going back to your top, you want to build a new state variable over here. Let's just call it the video and set video. That's going to be a Boolean local state variable. The reason is because on and off thing, turn on, turn off, enable it, enable it, this is all going to be Boolean. I think the Boolean is one of the greatest things in web developing. It allows a lot of amazing things or effects to happen. And you have that one done, and then we're going to have to write a function, maybe just right below it, and we say const toggle video. That's going to be another arrow function. And inside, it's very easy to set the Boolean function because you just need to set the status or the state variable to the opposite of its current. So that's going to be opposite video. If it's false, now it's true. If it's true, now it's false. Okay, so now we have the video thing done. And over here, we're just going to change that name. Instead of writing the detail, here it should either show the user it's going to be on the image or going to be on the video. So we make it dynamic using that local state variable video. If the video is true, we're going to show user the image because that will allow them to click on the image to switch back to image. Otherwise, if the video is false, we're going to show video because that will allow the user to go ahead and click on it and trigger the video. Okay, so now if we go back, it's there, but the CSS is not looking good, but it's there. So far, it's showing the image. That's why it pops up the video, because once you click on the video, it will show the video. It has to be the opposite way. And the next thing is to put on the trigger the toggle function. We're going to add a onClick events. And by the way, this link tag in the React router DOM works exactly the same as the anchor tag in HTML. It's no difference, except the anchor tag used the href. This one used 2. Other than that, they're all the same. You can use the built-in onClick events. Here we just say the toggle video. We'll call that one. So once it's clicked on, this thing will be toggled. It'll either be showing this one or another. Okay. And going back to the banner, we're going to put on the CSS for the navigation to make it look nicer. So down here, we'll make sure it has the same height as the previous one. It takes the remaining 50%. And also, we want to make sure that it has a beautiful hover effects. And also we give a certain font and uppercase for the text. And now it looks all good. We haven't added in the last one yet, but these two looks all good to me. But if you click on it, you can see this video and image text box got toggled, but the background video and image is not changing. The reason is because previously we have set a class name for it. We used the active class name to toggle the background video and the background image, right? But we haven't added this class name conditionally to our React code yet. So here we're gonna have to going back to our video and image and add those things back on. So in the image, instead of putting the active words by hard coding, what I will do, I will grab this one, cut it, And then we're going to write the conditional JavaScript, backtick to do temporary literal, put in the static class name first, and then going to do money sign double curly braces to enable the JavaScript. We're going to ask computer if the video is true. If the video is true, we're not going to show the image, right? So this one's going to be undefined. Otherwise, if the video is false, we're going to show the image. So only when the video is false, we're going to show the image. So the untrue condition, the false condition will be active. The logic is opposite. Hope you can master to get it. And for the video part, it's the other way around, actually. So first we cut the static part of the class name, wrapped it with the curly braces, enable backtick. This is going to be temporary literal. And then we put back the static class name, money sign double curly braces to enable JavaScript inside the string. And then we're going to ask the same question. If the video is true, we're going to make sure the video shows. So the video class active got added to this class name. If the video is false, basically means that you do not want to show the video. That's going to be undefined. The class name got removed off, right? So the image and the video must be the opposite. It cannot share the same logic for the active. Otherwise, they will be shown together. Save that. As you go back, if you turn this one on, you can see magically that video gets shown up and the image disappear. Click again, image come back, video disappear. What amazing things, right? Sometimes when you build a sophisticated website, you want to load all the things on a single page. You want to hide this, show that, and you want to have all of those fancy functions on it. With the vanilla JavaScript, you can do the same thing for probably a few more lines of code, and also more time consuming because it's very hard to do data mapping in the vanilla JavaScript. But in the React.js, all of those works becomes super unbelievably easy, I would say. I love it so much. Alright, just as a few lines of code, we have a conditionally rendering that active name in our class name for both image and video. And because we have predefined active result of the CSS inside our CSS file, we can see that result on our browser. Alright, so the last thing to do is to add on the last navigation item, which is another list. I'm just copy and paste the first one because it's very similar to the first one. And then change this one to more vehicles. More vehicles, yep. And I'm going back, that one's there. So far the details one and the more vehicles is not working because we haven't built a page yet. This one will lead us to the detailed page of that individual car. And this one will lead us to the catalog of the vehicles, which is another page. We have multiple pages in this website. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. The banner counts for 1. And also we have the individual page for each item, and that's going to be 5. A minimum 5 page. Oh no, not 5, 6. Because we have to build another page to store the user's liked item. So we have 6 pages in total. Okay, so far we're just building the banner. And you can see the top row of the banner has been successfully completed. Our next job is to build the bottom row. The bottom row is going to be pretty standard. 3 sections, dividing that into 3 sections, each contain a different column rows. So let's just jump in and finish that. So over here in the bottom part, we have created the 3 columns which take a different area. The first one will take 4 columns, the second one in the middle it will take 5 columns, and the last one will take the remaining 3 columns. So what I want to do now is that in the first part, we'll key in the corner image on the left. So we create a new class name called a div banner image. We have done this class name before to hold all the banner image in the banner page. So inside here, we're just going to create an image tag where we want the source to come from our API, third-party API, which we have used before. So that would be car.left image. So that's one of the image property stored in our external API. So if you go back to our API, mock API, and we'll see that we got the left image, right image, and banner image. We have used the banner image in the top section, and now down the bottom left corner, we'll use this left image where you can see the stored access of it. And going back here, we put that in. So give it a class name. We want this one to be image fluid. So whenever you put in the image fluid, that's a bootstrap controller for all the images, which will enable your responsive feature of your image. Otherwise, you have to do the CSS to make it responsive. And this one is done. So we save that, and then we're going back to the browser. As you could see, that one's there. It's not taking the full height of that section, but we'll adjust it in the CSS. So going back to the CSS. So now we are down here. And the way to make that taking the whole size of the height. Remember that we have set the top one as 65% of the vertical. This is the top image. So down the bottom image should be taking the remaining 35% of the vertical height. So now you see when you put .css, it's taking the whole height. It looks pretty cool. So now we're only left to the middle and the right part. So going back to the banner, and in the middle part, we're just going to put in more here in the column. So what we're going to have here is I create a new class name called car description. And inside here, we're going to have a card title, and also we're going to have a card features. The features will give all of those descriptions and a link that will allow you to go to the detailed page of the card. So here, first we give the title. Title going to be holding the H2, and then just put in card.title. If you look at the mock API, the title is there. That's the one, yeah, that we're needing. And so that's the first part. And in the second part, I'm going to create a new div called car features. And then here, we're just going to create a paragraph, which is used to hold the car description. And then if you look at the mock API, the description is the one down the bottom, which is the long one. So we're just going to access that over here. And then last but not least, I'm going to create a link. So this link will give another chance for the user to link to the detailed page. So we're just going to link that. So that one's in, and I will name it Explore. We might want to give a short arrow. So to get that icon, yeah, well, I remember I used it right above. So we're just going to copy that and put it in over here. So now we have our button created. And here inside the button, what I want to do is that I give a class name. And I call this one detail link. And that's going to be text center. So in that way, we can align this one to the center, which is a bootstrap class. So later on, when we have that detailed page built up, this one's supposed to go to the detailed page. But so far, we're just going to leave it there. Let's say we give it a 2. And supposedly, this one should go to the individual item page, and we're going to do a temporary literal to enable some routes parameter. And here we're just going to say this one want to go the vehicle, and that routes parameter there is supposed to be a dynamic depending on the vehicle ID. So this one is car.id. So it doesn't matter which car you are on right now, the ID is dynamic. So whenever the user click on the link, it'll go to that specific page which holds that route parameter ID. So that's how it works. So now we have that done. Everything should be fine now. If you're going back to the browser, you will see that's there. The reason why it looks ugly so far is because we haven't done the CSS part yet. So let's just jump to the CSS page and finish the remaining. So for the car description, which is this entire part, we're going to do a bit of a modification. We want the height to be 100%, and we want them to be display flexed and spaced evenly. So once we've done that, I hide it in the initial position because there's going to be an animation. Whenever the slide is on the active status, we want this part to show and slide in. So to have that slide in effects, we have to do the slide.active car description. So initially it's going to be hidden and opacity 0 and translate on a horizontal way 300 pixels. But whenever that slide is on active, it should have the on axis transform 0. Basically means there's going to be 300 pixel movement horizontally, and you're going to make it transparent to visible. And then when you're going back, you will see this one has been lined up correctly, okay? Because that one is on active. If you slide to another one, you will see that sliding in effects of the entire car description area, okay? So that's how it works. And then we're going to do a bit of a modification for the H2 title. We want that to have our racing car text font and make it slightly larger. And look at that. It looks pretty nice. And for the next part, the car features, we're going to do some modification to that one as well. First, we're going to make it display flex. And then we're going to make sure it display flex on the column part, right? Basically means it display flags vertically, not horizontally. And we'll make that take the whole height. And now it looks much better. And then we're going to do some controls to that paragraph inside to make the font a bit smaller, but font weight a bit larger. That looks much nicer. And then we're going to modify that button because down here, the explore thing is supposed to be a click button. So we're just going to control that with the CSS, give a certain padding, and give a font color, and give a certain width, and also on the hover effect, it would do. And now if we look at the button, it looks all proper now. Not bad. Yep. So that's the part for the middle, and we already finished it. And the last part is the remaining 3 columns on the right, which is this part. And that's going to be very easy to handle because in here, we're just going to put in an image on the corner. So we'll create an image, give the class name image fluid, and then it will take the whole width automatically. You don't have to do anything with the CSS. And then in here, in the source, we know that this one is coming from the mock API as well. So in the mock API, we also have the right image, which is the one on the right. We're just going to enable the access car.right image. So now we have that. And then we're going back to the browser, you can see that image is there. It's all lining up correctly and properly. Moving forward, you will see that amazing animation effects all going on. You will see the text box get slide in and slide out. And you will see this circled progressive bar get popped up. And all the images had to zoom in and zoom out animation effects with it. Looks pretty nice and cool. Okay, so this is how we're going to do for the banner page. Very cool. And then we have also done the header part. So this one is fully clickable. Ideally, this link should be working as well. That one will be the same as this one, or will enable the user to go to the detailed page of that individual item. But this one will get the user to move on to the catalog page, which displays the entire catalog of the vehicles. Okay, so our next job so far is to do the remaining page. But before we do so, we're going to have to do some general setup. Basically means that we need to set up the initial structure of all the pages, and also we need to build the routes for them in our app.js. Because so far, if you look at the app.js, we only have one route, which is the home page, the banner. But we need to build the remaining routes. Say for example, this one. Here we have the routes, which is the vehicle / the ID of the car. But we haven't even built our routes yet. So even though you click on the button over here, it'll give you that route. You will see the route changes, but it shows nothing because we haven't created that page which link to that route yet. That's what we're going to do in the next step. First, we're going to create all the page structures, do the general setting for the pages, and then we're going to link all the pages to the routes. And then after all of those jobs, we start to build each individual remaining pages. So let's first set up all of those pages we're going to be using in the remaining project development. So in the page folder, the first thing I want you to build is the vehicle folder, the vehicle file. So vehicles. This one will be used to hold all of our vehicle catalogs. So you create that, and then you just RFCE, like what I showed you before, to create a boilerplate. As soon as you finish that boilerplate, just very quickly going back to the page, and then we do vehicle.css. You have that CSS file ready, and link that thing back. So we're just going to import that vehicle.css. So those two are all linked up together. Close them off because we have the page component already. Later on, we're just going to use it straight away. And then on the second one, we're just going to create another page, which is the vehicle detail page, because this is kind of an important one. So here we just say vehicle details page.jsx. So that will hold the detailed information of each individual card. So whenever you click on the individual item, the link, like what we did before, the detailed one and explore one, it will allow the user to link to see the detailed information of that vehicle. So RFCE to create a boilerplate, and then similarly, vehicle details CSS. So just create that one, and going back to the detail, what we're going to do is import vehicle details.css. Alright, you save that, you have another component, the page component. And The next one is also kind of important one because it will have a lot of features in it, which is the liked item library. The user is allowed to like the card they choose and then put them into a library for a temporary purpose, so they know which one they have collected. So here in this folder, what you want to do is to create a library component to hold everything. So you have that library, and then again the CSS file for it, import it back, same folder. Alright, that one gets imported. So then we close this off. As soon as you finish building all of these, you just close them off. And so far we have done the 1, 2, 3, 4 pages. And there are remaining 2 pages. I'm just going to build them now, just in case we forgot them in the end. So one is the services. Here IFCE, create a services, and inside this file, just going to create a services.css. Very quickly, we're just going to import that. So that one is done. And the last page we're going to create is the contact page. So contact.js. And very quickly, contact.css. And then we're just going to import that for the last time. Yep, so that one is all done. So now we have all the pages being created in that page folder. And the next job is to use that React router DOM, the route element, to link all of those page component to the actual routes. And down here, besides that, we're going to create a new route. And it's going to be self-closing. Exactly, this word is kind of important because sometimes the user might want to go to a route name that has a very unclear words in it. If you don't put in the exact, say for example the /1, any routes will start with a slash, right? You don't put in the exact, it might lead user to other routes, so it's inaccurate. Put in the exact words, just telling the computer that you have to be exactly on this route for me to move on to that component. It will just make the routes very accurate. So the path, we're going to create a new path, which is the vehicles, and then the elements. Then that's going to be an object wrapped in quotation mark. So here we're just going to import the vehicle. So that's why I asked you to create this page component first. Otherwise, here you're going to import it. You haven't created it, you can't import it. And then close it. Just double check right above. It has been imported from the correct place. And you check that it has no problem. Okay. So this one is done. And just think about where we have used these routes before. In the banner, there's a link where we say here, this one, more vehicles, and link there, we haven't put in any direction yet. So actually that one is to be going to the route we just built. So this one, we type in here, vehicles. So now you have that. That's going to be the same name as your route that you just created. So the next time when a user is trying to click on the button, they will go to that component instead of an empty page. So if we're going back to see, I must be a typo in the component. Here it's supposed to be vehicles, it's plural. So now it's gone. And now if I click on this mode vehicles, you will see it goes to that vehicle page component. Because we only have one text word in it, which is at the left top corner, you will see that vehicles, that was there, but it's showing. Okay, and that route will load that page component instead of an empty page because we have created. This is how the React router DOM works. So on the next one, what we're going to do is a new route, self-closing, exact path. Here I'm going to show you something really amazing, which is the route parameter. Because remember, when we did the banner page over here, when the user clicks on the detail, it should go to the detailed page of that vehicle specifically. However, the ID of the vehicle is dynamic, it's different on each one. How do I enable these different routes in the React router DOM? Do we need to type in different IDs for them or map them again? No. Here it has this React router DOM pre-built a way to handle the route parameter, and you're just gonna do vehicle has to be the same slash. If you put a colon after slash, the route element will know you are trying to do the route parameter. So anything after the colon is gonna be a dynamic variable. Here we just put in ID. Just very specific, you have to put a colon first, and then you give your parameter's name. If you don't put that, it will go to that vehicle slash ID. The ID is treated as a text word. But if you put a colon, the ID is treated as a route parameter. Okay, so that's how you can make the route dynamic. And then here we're just going to type in elements, and inside we're just going to say vehicle details, import that, and then you're going to close your angle brackets and check the above. It has been imported from the correct place and all good to go. Okay, so now we have that one done. And if we now going back to the page, the home page, now you're going to the Explore one, you will see vehicle details /1. And how do you make sure that we can get this route parameter? Let me show you. If you go to that vehicle detailed page, so far it's putting in these text words. But what if I changed it to, say for example, well, I want to use that route parameter ID because the ID has been put in over here as 1, right? If I click on the second one, you'll see Explore, that ID over here has been changed to 2. So this one is absolutely dynamic depending on which one you click on. It's a route parameter. But we need to get that route parameter in our page so we can access the data of that ID's detail. And the way to do so, we're also going to use the React Roller DOM, which is a really amazing third-party library. It has a built-in function called the useParam. We're just going to use that useParam to do this. So here, we're going to import something called useParams from React Roller DOM. So that will allow you to use the route parameter. Okay, and down here, just inside above return, but inside the function, you create a const. You do the object destructuring, set ID. You want to see what's going on with the route parameter. We have one route parameter holding in it, which is the ID. So we fetch that using the useParam hook, and now you can have the ID. So here I just want to show you that ID is that ID. Okay, so now instead of loading this static text words, we want to make the page dynamic depending on the route parameter car ID. And now if you're going back, you will see that ID gets shown on. You see? And now if you're going back to the first page, this is the first car, has ID number 1. If I click on the detail, oh, this one I haven't enabled yet, just use the Explore. If I click on the detail, the Explore one, you will see that ID matches the route parameter ID 1 and gets shown on your DOM. Okay, so that's how we can access the route parameter using React Roller DOM. This is a very important skill, and you're going to use this skill all the way in your app development career, because you need to do the data fetching for each individual item as well, and we're going to fetch a different API for the individual items data and in a real project. And the best way to do that is to know the ID of that product, and you fetch it from the routes. Okay, just remember how to use this. And going back to the banner, and we haven't enabled that link yet, so I'm just going to copy this too. Going to the detailed one, here I put in that detailed routes. So in the banner page, we have the link, 2 places of that link that will enable user to go to the individual ID page. So now if I go into the banner, click on the detail, as you can see, that will give us that one. Yeah, we're going to the correct pages. We are now on a new page with that content loaded. It's showing nothing in here in the middle. It's just because in the car detailed page, we only have one text line. That's it. It gets successfully shown on the DOM. All right. So we've done that one. So just leave it there for now. Later on, we're going to do all the expansion and just keep finalizing the remaining stuff. So after that, what we're going to do is a route parameter for the, oh, that's going to be self-closing, for the library. Exact path. And then over here, we're just going to say library. So we'll create a new route for that. And element, what we're going to do is we load that library page component. And now you have it. Double check the above. It has been imported from the correct place, and that's it. And now you have it. Whenever we click on the library, it should go to that page. Just think about where's the position to click on to get you to the library. And that's going to be in our header. Over here, remember in the header we have a button in the navigation, which is the liked item, this one. So that'll allow you to go to the library page. So we have to do a bit of modification over here to enable that. So in here, instead of using the anchor tag, what I'm going to do, I'll change this to the link tag, which is the one in the React raw DOM. So here we just import that. And don't forget to change the closing tag as well. And instead of using the href, here we're going to use the to property. And over here, we're just pretty much going to say /library, which has to be the same route name as you build in your app.js, this one. And that'll load the library page, okay? So this is the route. Once you have done that, we're going back to our browser, and then we go to that button, click on it. It'll take us to the library page, and you can see the library was showing on the top corner. I have done it successfully. So this part is done, and we close off that. So that's that one. And for this one, the remaining part, and we're gonna have one more route, or two more routes, exact. So this path is going to get us to the services page, and we're going to have the elements of that services. Let's see. Yeah, my services is there, but it's not auto importing. What I will do, I'll delete the last letter and retype it. Here we go. That's the trick. Sometimes the auto importing is just not working. The trick is that you delete the last letter and then you retype it. Normally it will pop out. And you double check above, it's there. So now you have that services. And if you're going back to our browser, the way to get to the service page is using the navigation, because we have it done with the banner page. This goes to the detail, this goes to the vehicle catalog, and then the service one. You click on it, because we have pre-built all of those routes inside our navigation. This one should be working, and you can see that's the service loading, okay? And the amazing things about it, if you're going back to the navigation, which is the header, this one here, you will see our navigation is mapped using our nav list data, and inside our nav list data, we have that link which matches the routes we have built so far. This has to match, okay? Here the link is a link to vehicle, link to services, and in your app.js, the route name you build here must exactly the same, or missing a slash, must be exactly the same that matches this one. If you're missing an S, a plural, this one is plural, that one is a singular, it won't work properly. It might work to some degree, but it won't work properly. Well, if you type in a totally different name, it definitely won't work. Okay, it must matches to make it work properly. This is how it works. And yeah, we're pretty much done the second last one, and the last one will just be that. Another thing I want to show you is that what will be the difference if we actually do not use the anchor tag. Let's say in the nav list item, we're going to that. Here we just use that link. If we use the anchor tag here, let's just say for now we change it back. And for this one, instead of using the to, we use the href, which is the same thing. It'll give you the same functionality and property features. And going back to that, and then we go to a vehicle, you will see that it's going to be a flink effect. It's very quick, but it's going to be a flink effect. It's not quite obvious on your local host because it's local. When you go put your website on the external server, that flink effect is quite obvious because there's a time reflection between. Okay, to make your website function really smooth and nice, I recommend you to use the link because that'll remove the flink effect. So here we just put back that link. The anchor tag and the link works in the same way. Actually, on your DOM, the link will be translated into the anchor tag as well. It's the same thing. It's just that it gives you a better functionality, a better animation. So we change it back. Going back there, click on any of those. You see, that one is very quick and smooth, no flink effect. It's not quite obvious, but believe me, when it's on the real server, that flink effect does affect performance of your web page. Okay, so just bear that in mind. And then we've done that over here. So let's just finish out the last component for the routes. So we do route, and it's a self-closing. Going back, exact. Give it a pass. So the last one gonna be our contact page. So we just do that. and element equals to, we're going to have our contact. It's doing that again. So what I will do, I'll delete the T, retype it. Here we go. Auto import. Just double check right above. The contact page is successfully imported. And now we have all the pages. Oh, beautiful. So going back to the browser, opened up the navigation, contact. See, the contact route is working. It's loading that contact page. That's no problem. Okay, all matched up successfully. So this is how we build a multiple page website using React Router DOM. You have to create the routes for it, name it, and then you have to put a link in each element that will lead to that link. And also you have to attach that element, the component, to that route. And those three things must all be done for the entire route to be working. Right. So in this video, we have finalized the banner page, all of those sophisticated functionality, the page animations, the video toggles, this one over here, and also all the links to different routes we have built. We have created all of those navigations and headers, and also we have done those route parameters, the routes and component linking and match, those sort of stuffs. So this video, I'm going to finish here so far. And in the next video, I'm going to take you to do more fancy jobs, which is about the vehicle detailed page, and that'll get you to see how do we map from the mapping and the link to an individual page to show more detail of that specific item, right? So in a real project, you're gonna have to know how to do a batch mapping, which show the entire catalog of your item, and also you're gonna have to know how to link the user to each individual item page. So in the next video, I'm going to show you that trick, and also we will build that vehicle catalog page, and also I'll show you how to enable that like functionality, so it'll allow you to like item and put it into your library page. Okay. So the next video is going to be more exciting. If you do learn something from my project, please subscribe my channel, like it, share it, and I will see you in the next video.